Thank you, staff. Thank you for the many members of the public who are here today joining us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining online as well. It is 5:30 and I'll declare this meeting open, and in doing so I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Noongar Wadandi people, and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures, to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to acknowledge any elders that are here this evening or watching online. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, we do just have Councillor Gassop who is joining us online. Councillor Gassop, can you hear us there?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And Councillor Steck, I believe, is in the waiting room. Councillor Steck, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mr. Mayor.
Cool. And just to Councillor Steck, can you just confirm you're in a suitable location to participate?
Yes, I am, sir, and I'm in a private room.
So thank you. They are joining the meeting. I would also like to acknowledge that Sonia Dyer is here representing our member Don Punch. Thank you for coming. There are some former councillors here. Councillor McCleary is here, former Councillor McCleary, and I believe there's a couple other former councillors coming this evening as well. Thank you for attending. I do just have announcements, and this is not something I normally do and take this opportunity, but I believe it's fitting coming for our last council meeting of the year to just make a few notes on the year we've had. I take great pride in being part of this council, and I think we've achieved a lot of things, both this current council in its short term, but obviously the previous council in the previous 12 months. So I'm very proud to be part of that. I do acknowledge that we have disagreements both here amongst ourselves and sometimes with the community. And I know that sometimes in here things may happen or be said that we don't always agree with. And I do want to apologise if there has been any distress by council along the way. It's never the intention of this council or any councillors. We're always here for the community. We do commit to continue to learn what we're doing, and we do to commit to our continuous improvement. And I think that's very important. I'm looking forward to working very closely with this council in the new calendar year. I would like to take the opportunity as well to show the gratitude towards our hardworking staff. Again, we don't always agree, and I think there's probably a number of times where we have voted against executive recommendations. That isn't any sign of disrespect. That's obviously a sign of elected members. We do certainly support their hard work, and I would like to make full comment on that, of the work that they have done. I would like to take that opportunity to give recognition to Mr. Gary Barber, our director over here, who will be his last, not just council meeting for the year, but last council meeting with the City of Bunbury. Gary has worked with the city for a long time, and I've been very proud to work with him. So behalf on the council, thank you, Gary, and good luck in your next future endeavours. Lastly, I just want to make, minute taker, I know you're trying to wind me up there, but probably most importantly, I would just like to give the appreciation back out to this community, and it's fitting we have a number of people here this evening, hopefully a few watching online as well, because it is a very passionate community, and one thing you get to see firsthand here. So we're all here because we do love this community, we all live in this community, and we're all very much part of it. So having people around us who share that passion is great, and we're here as elected members, but also here representing the community today in the gallery, because we want to see Bunbury continually grow and improve. So thank you very much for all that. I'm very optimistic about our future, very optimistic about 2024. There's a number of exciting things in the works. But in that interim, I'd like to welcome everybody and wish everybody a very warm Christmas and a very successful 2024. So thank you. That's the most announcements I've ever made, but we'll kick that off. We do have a couple of we all are here in attendance now, so thank you. We do have a couple of declarations of interest which are on the screen. Councillor Steck, I'm assuming you're following on, but we have your declaration of interest there as well. And Councillor Andrew, we have your declaration of interest there. And I've received one more from Councillor Quain on item 10.3.4. It's an impartial interest, so she will be staying in the room. Is there any other declaration of interest, councillors, on any item for this evening? Thank you. We have the minutes from the previous meeting held on the 28th of November. Is somebody happy to move those? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Steck. Just before we do vote, so Councillor Steck, I can't see you, so when I ask for the vote, I'll probably just ask you to say yes or no. I can see you, Councillor Gassop, so if you could raise your hand in the affirmative or negative, that'd be great. So those in favour of that executive recommendation, please indicate. And Councillor Steck?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's always the good test. The minutes of the advisory committee as well. Could I have somebody move that we accept those minutes as followed for the audit committee and policy committee? Somebody happy to move? Councillor Andrew and Councillor Quain as mover and seconder. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. Councillor Steck?
Yes.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you. There are no petitions, no presentations, but we do have a number of deputations here. And now, for those who haven't joined us in this forum before, I know there's a number of people who have, and there's also a number of people who have been in other forums. In the official OCM meeting that we're in now, these deputations are for a maximum of 10 minutes. You don't need to use all that time, but there's also no back and forth between the elected members and the deputiser in these particular meetings. So it's a chance to sell your story, whether in support or against. If you have questions, we can't answer them directly. If those questions are worthy of an elected member asking, they can obviously ask them afterwards. So I just thought I'd make that clear because I know there's a number of here that haven't been part of this process. Normally we vote to allow people to speak as a deputation, but I'm just going to put it to the elected members. If nobody has any concerns, I'm happy to put that we accept all these deputations tonight. I'm happy to put that. Is somebody happy to second that? Councillor Quain, I'll put that. Those in favour of allowing all the deputations, please indicate.
Yes.
Councillor Steck, thank you. When we get to your items for those members, we will go through them. We will be going through, well, that's on the method now. We will be going through those items as they appear on the agenda at this stage. But coming out for discussion, there's some items that won't require discussion, but the ones that are coming out at this stage are item 10.3.3, that does require an absolute majority, 10.3.4, which requires some nominations, 10.4.1, which does have some deputations, 10.4.2, which does have deputation, 10.4.3, which does have a deputation, and of course we'll deal with the motion and notice at the end. I believe there was two others, sorry, I'm just bringing up that Councillor Steck had emailed me. 10.1.4 will come out for a clarification point, and 10.19 will come out for a clarification point. I'll run through those again, councillors, at this stage coming out for discussion. 10.1.4, 10.19, 10.3.3, 10.3.4, 10.4.1, 10.4.2, 10.4.3, and the motion notice will be dealt with. Is there any others for further discussion? All okay? Yep. Is all okay? Somebody happy to move the remainder are moved en bloc? Happy to move that. Councillor Andrews, second on Councillor Quain. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Thank you. So that's moved. So for those who are here for any of those other items, they have all been accepted as written. We're dealing with 10.1.4, which I might just ask somebody to get on the table, Councillor Steck. I believe you had a question, but I might just put somebody put that on the table. Is somebody happy to move the executive recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Second to Councillor Quain. Councillor Steck, did you have a question on this? This was
Yes, I
a
did, sir.
clarification.
It relates to point 5,
This is
page
10.1 for you.
159. Yep. It's Policy Review Development Committee Terms of Reference Review. Point 5, to provide Bunbury City Councillors with assistance and support to develop new council policies. I just wanted to clarify, sir, that what is the procedure and who do we go to? Is it Mr. Galinsky, or what is the process for assistance?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Steck. I'm getting some nods, but I'll just get the CEO if he could provide something for you, Councillor Steck.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, that would go through the Manager of Governance, Councillor Steck.
Councillor Steck, if I could, that might be something we can have a conversation with when you're back and healthy. And I will note for those who are wondering, Councillor Steck is obviously unwell at the moment, hence why she's joining by Zoom. So if you're comfortable with that, Councillor Steck, did you have any other questions on that?
No, sir, that's it.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Steck. Was there any further questions or likely to be any debate on this, councillors? Thank you. If that's the case, I'll put item 10.1.4. Those in favour, please indicate. Councillor Steck?
Yes.
That's carried. Thank you. Item 10.1.9, same thing. There was a question there. I'll just ask if there's a mover first. Do we have a mover on that? Councillor Steele, thank you. Sorry. Mind blank there. Councillor Quain, seconder. You had a question here around the description to include education, Councillor Steck. I'll allow you to elaborate.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to elaborate. And I refer to the policy scope and also the procedure and definitions. And then it goes on through all the land entitlements and shows you all the various parcels of land. And I will note on page 199 through to 1 to 14, and not all of them need to be educational, but I'd ask the question to point 12, which is the Bunbury Wildlife Park surrounding Big Swamp grounds, that is passive recreation hire. But I also believe that the wildlife park, is that also to include educational opportunities, sir? It doesn't specifically say so in any of that policy.
Sure. I'll just see if the CEO's got a comment on that, maybe through to the director.
Thank you, Mayor. Probably I would suggest that is the dominant, the passive recreation hire, but I do acknowledge there is an educational component, but the Director of Sustainable Communities may have a comment.
Through you, Mayor, I think the policy refers to a formal trading licence. So if it was a business to conduct educational activities, if it was inside the wildlife park, it would be a discussion with the staff of the wildlife park, and we'd have to come up with some formal arrangement if it was appropriate. If it's outside for the Big Swamp, then again, it's something that could be considered, but I think it's unlikely that a business would want to operate an educational service in that area. However, the policy doesn't preclude that from happening, and we could consider it.
Are you comfortable with that answer, Councillor Steck?
Given that advice, yes, given that advice, can I exclude the wildlife park out of this policy, sir, for the reasons that I will provide?
Before you explain any further, Councillor Steck, I think that would have to require you to speak against this item. To do that, because we have the recommendation. That's obviously a significant change to this policy. So I would have to suggest you would have to speak against this particular recommendation, because the recommendation talks about adopting it as it is. So that would be my recommendation to you in that sense.
Fair enough. Otherwise, yeah, I understand. Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Councillor Steele, Councillor Steele was just
Thank you. Can I just ask for a point of clarification of what Councillor Steck was asking? I'm just wondering, is it what the Dolphin Discovery Centre, Councillor Steck, had I think it was Murdoch University used to do educational things through themselves, through Dolphin Discovery Centre. Is that what you're trying to allude to, or try to get onto the policy?
Yes, that's partly true because Murdoch University does do that. Thank you, Councillor Steele. And I also know that there is capacity through the Bird Wildlife Park for University of WA to do the same. So that's why I was concerned. But I'm quite happy to just vote against it or vote for it and then bring it back on the table in 3 months as we are allowed to do.
Sure. Councillor Steele?
Now that I've clarified that, would this policy stop that from actually happening?
No.
No.
But
thank you.
I'll ask the director through the CEO if he has any further.
So thank you, Mayor. I think the Director of Sustainable Communities has already indicated that what's in this doesn't preclude that, but I'll ask him to make a further comment.
Through Mr Mayor, that I would say that as a partnership arrangement. There's nothing precluding a university or a school coming to the wildlife park. We already have schools come through the wildlife park. That would, if it needed to be formalised, it would probably come through council to have some sort of partnership arrangement for that. This policy is specifically around trading in public places. So if it's a private vendor who wanted to go into the wildlife park and run a business, that's a different scenario.
Thanks for that clarification. I'll just move, the mover was Councillor Andrew. Okay, so Councillor Steele. Anything to say, Councillor Steele? The seconder? Was there, who was the seconder? Councillor Quain was the seconder. Anything to say, Councillor Quain, on this item? Thank you. Yep, sure. Councillor Steck, did you want to speak against this?
Yes, I did.
Sure. Now's your time. Oh, did you say yes? Oh, no, thank you. Okay, all good. If that's the case, I'll put this...
No, I will speak against it.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Steck. Yes, now's your time.
Thank you. I understand what the executive team is saying, and I respectfully understand that they're talking specifically about licences and speaking to staff and everything else. But however, council needs to, as a whole, have a view of what the Bird Wildlife Park is going to be and the Big Swamp and what it can be. And to achieve that, we need to have a designated plan, and that will be set aside from this policy. So I can't help but speak against it because this policy is only dealing with, you know, small formal arrangements where if you've got some arrangements in place, then you can't go on and achieve greater things. And I'm sorry, but I can't accept that.
Thank you, Councillor Steck. Is there a speaker for? Councillor Steele. I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? And Councillor Steck?
Nay, sir.
Against? Yeah, Councillor Gassif and Councillor Steck against that. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, councillors. We come to item 10.3.3. This item requires an absolute majority, councillors, hence it's came out. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Kozsek, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Is there likely to be any debate on this, councillors? I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. And Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, item 10.3.4 does require some nominations for councillors to go onto this group. Yep, I have received one nomination from Councillor Steck at this stage, but I believe there are some others. For those who are interested in nominating, please indicate. Councillor Brown, Councillor Andrew, Councillor Quain, Councillor Kozisek, Councillor Steele. We have to just got some advice earlier. We'll deal with the members first. And given now, councillors, we have more requests than the members, we'll deal with in 2 votes because there's quite likelihood to be a tie if we have situations where we're voting 4 times. So we'll be dealing with votes for the member, and then we'll be dealing with votes for the alternative member. So happy to stay on there, Councillor Steele. So at this stage, councillors, we have Councillor Steck, Councillor Andrew, Councillor Brown, Councillor Kozisek, Councillor Quain and Councillor Steele. Was there any other nominations before I ask for a vote? Okay, councillors, we need 2 votes and that will obviously determine the 2 members. So 2 votes on this. So out of those 6 names, not preference, first past the post. So Councillor Steck and Councillor Gassop, as per our new policy, if you could text the CEO with 2 names out of Steck, Andrew, Brown, Kozisek, Quain and Steele, and then I'll ask the CEO and Manager of Governance to run the ballot. Thank you. For those in the gallery, thank you for patience during this. I better not touch it. You better just Mr. Galinsky. You get a result? You declare the result?
So thank you, Mayor. We'll declare that the 2 representatives will be Todd Brown and Ben Andrew.
Thank you. So Councillor Andrew and Councillor Brown will form part of member 1 and member 2. So I call for nominees for the alternative member. I'm going to assume that those who nominated for the full membership would like to stay on for this option. Yep, thank you. And any other nominees? Councillor Turner. Councillor Turner would also like to nominate. So councillors, we will run another vote. Again, 2 names out of Councillors Steck, Kozisek, Quain, Steele and Turner. And again, we're requiring 2 names in there. Thank you. And again, Councillor Gassop and Councillor Steck, if you can text through as well. Thank you. I'm okay.
What's that?
Is that yours there?
Here, yep, that is. And there's 2 more. Oh, you ready?
Yeah, can do that. Oh, you already did that. How very elegant.
So, do you want, so Kozisek
Trust
and
it there.
Steck. That was from Gabby. So there you go. Kozisek and Steck.
Yep.
Yep. So, Mayor, the outcome of the alternate member ballot was Councillor Kozisek, but we do have a tie for the second alternate member, so we will need to do a rabbit draw that we will do right now.
Very official. You can do it. Manager can do it. I will stay away.
So just to confirm, the one we will draw now will be the second alternate member. That is Councillor Steele.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. So, councillors, we now have this recommendation which has those names fulfilled. And just for those who are joining in, and this might be your first time, this doesn't happen very often. This once every 2 years for an acknowledgement or notice on panels. If those were here a few weeks ago, this process went for a few hours when we had about 20 committees to go through, but only happens every 2 years. So we have that recommendation now. Could I have somebody move this recommendation, councillors? Thank you. Councillor, is there a seconder? Councillor Andrew? I'll put this, councillors. Those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we come to item 10.4.1, which is the telecommunications infrastructure. We do have a number of deputations here. We also have, sorry, Councillor Steck, and a financial interest. So, Councillor Steck, I'll get the minute taker to put you into the waiting room, and you won't be able to participate in this part of the meeting. Councillor Brown, do you have a question? The one before you do, I'll just make sure Councillor Steck is no longer in the meeting. Okay, thank you, minute taker. Councillor Brown? That is wrong. While we get that fixed up, thanks, Councillor Brown. That's the wrong executive recommendation there. The title of the item is correct. While we are waiting for that to just be clarified, we will just ask our deputations to come in. Given that our first deputation is coming online, and I'll let the minute takers sort this out, I might just skip to our second deputation, to Tony Mibus, to join us. Thank you, Tony. And that is the executive recommendation in front of us. Thank you, Tony. You have 10 minutes. It will be. Skip to our second deputation to Tony Mibus to join us. Thank you, Tony. Somebody's viewing me. That is the executive recommendation in front of us. Thank you, Tony. You have 10 minutes. Maybe we'll just give that a moment and make sure that's fixed. Will we? Skip to our second deputation to Tony Mibus to join us. Thank you, Tony. Somebody's viewing me. Okay, we should be good. Thanks, Tony. If we hear an echo in a moment, you can pause and start again.
And, that's working. And just got a little PowerPoint. Whether you put it up good, if not, they're my notes. And I might add my apologies for typos. My proofreading is not great, especially my own writing. Right then. That's the South Bunbury Marketplace, or used to be Middenham Forum. What's proposed is a 35-metre tower. And people thinking back to old days, 115 feet. It's quite tall, and probably one of the tallest structures in Bunbury. I think Councillor Andrew told me before, yes, there's a couple of other towers that tall near Harvey Norman, and another one as well. But it stands out. My part's there, visual pollution. It's going to be visible from kilometres away. It's not going to like there's hills around and a lot of things like that. Not only the local residents have it, even down towards Kerry Park will see it as well. And probably for me, self-interest, I'll look at my bedroom in the morning, open the curtains, I'll see it. I go into my drive in Hakea Crescent, I'll see it. I'll walk into my backyard in Hakea Crescent, I'll see it. And, as I said, we're one of the tallest structures in Bunbury. There's not much, as I said, there might be a few, but not many that tall. Even driving around Perth, you don't see very many tall towers. I was driving around the other day and specifically looking, and nowhere near did I see it that high. And, Busselton will have its jetty, Perth will have its bell tower, Bunbury will have its new landmark, the new Telstra Tower. Adverse effect on house prices, that's another concern for me. The tower nearby will make properties less desirable, and that'll be reflected in house prices. I've spoken to a real estate agent, and he said, no guarantees, but he said it won't be good for trying to sell a house in the future. And there's a lot of houses around the area that will be affected. And I know in the past I've gone to areas, my wife said, well, how about here? Not with that tower here, I wouldn't buy a place. So they'll have an effect there, and that's a real concern. And it's not an appropriate location. It's right in the middle of a residential area. Yes, you've got a shopping centre there, but it's surrounded by houses. Schools are close by to the tower as well. You've got Newton Moore close and Adam Road close as well, and they could be affected. Also, this is a typo, I said, many residents aren't aware of the project. There are 18 objections to the project according to Maureen from planning, but I've spoken to 11 of my neighbours. They weren't even aware it's going to go ahead. Yes, there was a mail out done. Woman next door, I was away, my daughter's there, I didn't see the letter. My next door neighbour, well, she's been in hospital, she wasn't able to do anything. But I've spoken with others as well. They're just not aware of it. And it's not saying the council hasn't done its job, but there's a yellow sign outside the marketplace. It's been in the paper, there's been mail outs, but it's still not that well known. And health concerns. I'm not one of the people that think that putting out there is going to give us cancer, things like that. But there are still some concerns out there. You read the Victorian Government website, it said, yes, we don't believe there's any. However, there's been studies in the UK that say it could affect children within that range. The high school may be or may not just be within that range, but you never know. But the other ones are my major concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. I'll ask the Minutaker now to bring on Mark Bays, bring them online. They are making their deputation via Zoom.
Yep. Everyone can hear me okay?
Thank you, Mark. Jason Miggill here, Mayor of the City. You have now been accepted to make a deputation. You have 10 minutes if you need it. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Hello, everyone. I thank you, City of Bunbury, for allowing me the opportunity to provide a deputation in favour of item 10.4.1 on behalf of my client Amplitel and Telstra. Before determining this site as the best candidate, Ventia had conducted an extensive search across a wide area to identify locations where the proposed structure and facilities could effectively alleviate Telstra's coverage gaps in Withers and South Bunbury. This involved engaging with different landowners and conducting site surveys. Throughout the search process, the majority of available land parcels presented challenges for the intended structure, such as incompatible zoning, limited space, and poor accessibility for heavy vehicles. Additionally, there were also landowners too who proved unsupportive or unresponsive. Despite these obstacles, Ventia contend that the chosen site for the application stands out as the most suitable candidate. Although the site is across from residents, the location has favourable neighbourhood centre zoning and will adjoin only high-density R20, R50 mixed-use residential premises that have greater potential for redevelopment. The site too will be in great proximity to Telstra's target coverage area. It will require no clearing of trees, can be easily connected to existing power and fibre networks, and the land has ample room for the compound, along with surrounding tall built and natural features which can provide some relief, visual relief, I mean. So upon reviewing and addressing several submissions from the community, we can acknowledge that yes, the proposal will inevitably have some impact towards the visual amenity of the immediate vicinity. However, Ventia do not consider that the structure and facilities will considerably detract from a view of a significant feature or a highly appreciable view, nor will it detrimentally affect views towards any private residents. So to mitigate its visual impact, the monopole design opts for a slender build, with the headframe kept as narrow as practical and antennas protruding minimally. The structure will be painted in a neutral grey or a colour approved by the council. This will ensure it blends seamlessly with the sky, adjacent shopping centre wall, trees and electricity lines. In contrast to other commercial sites with impervious surfaces that were initially under consideration, the grassy eastern rear of the subject lot and the adjacent council reserve offer significant potential for planting new native trees. If this is implemented, this could further conceal public views towards the structure, enhancing its integration to the surrounding environment. With the provision of this structure with 4G and 5G Telstra technologies and the future co-location capacity for other carriers, this will provide an immediate and lasting benefit to the community, which will outweigh any anticipated visual impact by enhancing mobile coverage in both the South Bunbury and Withers suburbs. So on the subject of property devaluation, Amplitel and Telstra maintain that there is no credible evidence that directly links the siting of a telecommunications facility to either an increase or decrease in property values and rent, as the installation of this structure and facilities will not prejudice the ability of adjoining and nearby landowners to develop or enjoy the use of their properties. So despite some of the submissions also raising concerns with EMI emissions from antennas within the community, there is no evidence telecommunications technologies such as 5G cause adverse health impacts to humans of any ages and sizes. Telstra, as a major reputable Australian carrier holding a spectrum licence, can assure the emissions from the proposed facility will be significantly below the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency standards that have been adopted by the Australian Communications and Media Authority. So, along with the compliance with Australian health standards, the proposal too is consistent with the relevant provisions of the City of Bunbury Local Planning Scheme and all applicable federal and state legislative instruments. As such, we support the recommendations put forth by City of Bunbury and will endeavour to satisfy the conditions set by Council should there be approval. I thank you again for listening and letting me present today.
Thank you, Mark. Next we have Samantha Craig. Samantha.
Yes, thank you, councillors. We've already made our position known in the objection lodged in response to the tower in October. We're very concerned about the location of the tower and the impact the structure will have on our property. The property that we own and which we purchased only approximately 12 months ago is directly in front of the tower. So in terms of a measurement, the tower is approximately 40 metres from the front door of the property. So that's 40 metres not even from the verge, but 40 metres literally from the property's front door. We purchased the property some time ago for my sister and her 3 children and partner to live in. They were homeless at the time. So for us, it was considered to be a long-term rental. I heard Mark, I believe his name is, to make, as part of his deputation, some comments in regards to the zoning of the property, but certainly our intention in purchasing the property at 2 Devonshire Street, which is directly opposite where the tower is going to be built. The purpose from our intention was to be a long-term rental for that family, and now, excuse me, now of course they're going to be faced with, I think, as noted, literally opening up their front door and faced with a monolith structure, essentially where you are, Mayor, every day. So we're very concerned about the impact that that will have on their mental health. We're very concerned about the impact on their amenity and use of the property. I don't think it can be suggested adequately that the company can take steps to make the structure less visual to the community and the residents in the area by its nature and by the size of the structure, and the fact, particularly for my property, that it is literally metres away. There is just no steps that they could take to make the visual impact any less than it is. Included in the proposal, I think there was some information provided about the alternate candidate. That appeared to me from inspection and review of the documents to be some metres down the road, still in a residential area, but not directly in front of any residential properties, which the current location is. It certainly noted that that was also an alternate preferred candidate, and it just concerns us that no further information or steps has been taken to inquire as to why that proposal, which from a residential perspective is surrounded by more trees at present. The proposal is there's 1 tree nearby, which it's alleged in the proposal won't be harmed, but we don't necessarily agree that that won't occur. So in terms of alternate proposals, I agree with the position made that this is a highly residential area, and it just doesn't seem appropriate to have a facility like this with such an impact in such a high residential area. There can be no question that there will be an impact on value of property. There cannot be any doubt that that will occur if the councillors were to ask themselves, would you purchase a property, or would I have this monolith structure in the front of my property, literally 40 metres out the front? Your answer would undoubtedly be no. You wouldn't be saying yes, and you certainly wouldn't be purchasing a property where that is located that far away. So in terms of considering this proposal, I'd really urge you to think to yourself, would I pull up at the front door and be satisfied to have that structure at the front? You just wouldn't. You wouldn't say yes to that. So I don't agree with Mark's position that it won't have any impact. It will have impact on mental health. It will have impact on the residents and how they perceive themselves and how they perceive their position, knowing that the council agreed that this structure should be included in their residential area. I would strongly urge councillors to vote against the inclusion of that structure in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. And lastly on this topic, we have Jill Thompson. Is Jill here? Thank you. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to address you on this matter. I will just declare that I do live about 500 metres away from the proposed site, and this is my local shopping centre. It's also a heart and soul place where the Chewett Forest is connected. So there's a few things that have been raised by other people. I won't cover those, and everything is also in the disposition. I have 2 main concerns, and that is one, that the telecommunication towers will affect the Chewett Forest and woodland. It's not part of that Chewett Forest and woodland, but we know and we understand that a corridor of Chewett trees is a very important environmental aspect, as well as what's happening underground for those Chewett trees, not just above. I also disagree with what Mark said about no trees will be damaged. There's a distance of 13, what I calculate to be just over 13.5 metres of infrastructure to go in where there's a 10-metre space before the first tuart tree is located. I estimate that tuart tree to be 200 to 300 years old. I understand that there is a regrowth policy that's going to happen, or policy proposal, but it will take another 300, 400 years to do that, to grow such a similar tree. As we continue along that path, the 13.5 metres then actually butts against a second tree. Now, with the infrastructure that I can see on the planning of what's going to be done on the ground and under the ground to get this telecommunication towers up, I cannot physically see or cannot conceive how the tree would not be damaged. Pruning a tuart tree does not actually work. At the front of the Minanut Forum on its western side, there is one tuart tree that was pruned about a decade ago. We can see the result of that it's now dead. These monolith trees do not like to be pruned as such. So the Tuart Woodlands and Forest Ecology Community is an important part of what I'm arguing here, and those trees will be damaged and those trees will probably die. And it's one more tree that the City of Bunbury needs to be responsible for. We are on the border of the Bunbury Outer Ring Road development, and we can see what destruction has been going on there. We did have a lot of people speak against that. It was a proposal that was already in the plan. It was a plan that was 30 to 40 years old, but it still went ahead. I acknowledge that this actual proposal does have legislative compliance with state and local planning, but I'm just wondering whether there's another thing that we can look at, like our greening policy, reducing the heat in Bunbury. So if we keep removing these mature trees, what else we're causing in that regard? I also disagree with what Mark said about the health risk of electromagnetic radiation. So I'm just going to get my water.
Sure.
When he says that there's no evidence that these towers do create any sort of health risks, I disagree entirely. The opinions that different scientists have on this do differ. There is no hard and fast rule about it. There is evidence that it does do damage. There are others who claim that it does not. So it's not a hard and fast rule as such. When Mark stated that the electromagnetic radiation human exposure standard of 2003 will be followed, that's interesting. It's a 20-year-old standard, and a lot of research has been done in that time to disprove that that standard was actually a good standard to follow now, including some of the long-term studies that were not done. Also, with the Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency as such, I say that there is evidence of health risks, and it's not true that we could be exposed as such. So yes, it's a 20-year-old standard that we're looking at. We need to look at that again. So saying that the proposal does not result in the removal of any existing large verge trees along Devonshire Street, I disagree with. Like I said, there's one tree in that 13.5 metre section of the building which falls at 10 metres, so I'm sure that will go. And the second tree will be right on the border of that 13.5 metres. So I'm mainly concerned about that. I also would like to point out that I feel that there's other places we can put this. I've heard some other people talk about it being in a residential zone. I wouldn't like to open my door and see a tower there 40 metres across the road from me. I think that's rather cruel of Telstra to even consider that. We do have a lot of public open space here in Bunbury. I know that one of the things that is proposed is that these towers don't go at recreational areas, but I would disagree that a recreational area should be I think recreational areas should be considered as such because they're public open spaces, because they don't incur any damage to any sort of native vegetation or old vegetation that's already there. We've got many places to look at, and we've got some different ones that we've suggested to you. I think that's about it. So we do have alternatives. We do have alternative locations where the vegetation will not be disrupted. The Bunbury Outer Ring Road is probably going to take about 3,000 years to be recovered as such, for it to grow back in that state. These couple of trees might not be significant to a big company like Telstra, but if you look at the corridor of large tuits that are around there, from the Maidens all the way down to Adam Road Primary School and beyond, you'll see that it is actually a connected corridor. We don't agree that the 2003 standard is sufficient for our health and wellbeing, and we wonder in the future what litigation costs a council might have if they approve such things, knowing that there could have been a risk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jill. Councillors, we have an executive recommendation in front of us. Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Andrew, is there a seconder? Councillor Brown, happy to second, thank you. Was there a question? Before we start that debate, I think there may be a couple of questions. Councillor Steele?
Apologise for these questions that I wasn't here last week. But
No problems.
A few questions. So I'm reading the Venetia's proposal, and on page 358673 or page 3 of theirs, the proposal is that they want it because Telstra have a rollout of needing these, and if we don't put it there, then it's going to have, you know, main issues will arise of our new developments. But then when I look on page 12, which is a bit contradictory, on page 12 of 53, it goes a 500 metre radius, but it actually doesn't include where the new developments are going to be. So I don't understand why they actually need it. And for example, why do they need it in this location if they're saying they need it for, you know, for future developments when the actual area doesn't actually consider the things I want? Yeah, and also, I'm also another question
We'll
too.
start with that one
Yeah.
first, Councillor Steele. We'll get back to it, don't worry. CEO, through the Director, could you provide a response to that?
Thank you, Mayor. Through the Director.
Through Mr Mayor, I can't answer the need question. We have an application that a proponent has submitted saying that they feel that there is a need and they've done an assessment and they've chosen a particular site, and now we have a development application for it, and we need to determine it on planning grounds as to whether that's suitable or not. Need doesn't enter into the planning consideration. Once I receive a statutory application, all I can say is in their application they have assessed, determined that there is a need, and they have put in an application.
Follow-up question, Councillor Steele, or
I'm also surprised that there's no submission from Telstra actually wanting this and letting us know. I cannot see any evidence of that area needing this, and even though the planning thing says no need, but it actually says need in the proposal, so I need to make a decision based on the need of us actually really needing this.
Director, have you got a comment for that?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll ask the Director of Sustainable Communities to provide further comment.
Through Mr Mayor, my understanding is the applicant is engaged by Telstra, so I presume that they are acting on behalf of Telstra, and what they've submitted is Telstra's position on it.
Councillor Steele?
More questions? I should have asked all these last week.
That's
So
okay.
then, how close then does this tower actually need to be? It's saying it has blackout spots within Withers and that area, South Bunbury, which I live, and I don't have this issue. So, and it'd be very interesting to know whether the Withers people actually do have this issue as well. So I would like to know how close would the tower need to be to stop those blackouts? And how far out of the city maybe we could put this tower?
I don't think the Director is going to be able to answer that one for you, Councillor Steele. Again, it's probably the question for the developer. As the Director's indicated, the city have received the application. They've indicated this is the need. It's up to the city to assess that application based on the information that's provided. So, and that's, yeah, maybe potentially leave that for the debate, Councillor Steele. There was a question over here. Councillor Turner, do you have a question? Okay. Was there any other questions? Councillor Kozisek.
Yes, I'm just wondering, Mr Mayor, if we decide not to approve this, will it then be taken to SAT?
Again, the director can't answer that. They have any opportunity, any decision made by this council can be taken to SAT. I would suggest if there is an appetite to not approve this, obviously part of our work needs to be to give some wording around what that would look like and the reasons why. As indicated by the report, amenity doesn't fit into this planning scheme, so you may potentially, your next question might be, would there be any planning grounds to reject it? But I'll let you dwell on that for a moment. Councillor Turner?
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Would there be any planning grounds?
CEO, through
object to this. Thank
sure,
you.
I'll defer to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you've outlined, and the report does outline that the applicant, as in any planning application, has the ability to appeal the decision. In terms of whether there's any planning grounds, the report outlines the assessment and the way that the application has been assessed. I can ask the Director of Sustainable Communities if he's got any other comments that he'd like to make in relation to that, but it does have to be the council, if they, in rejecting, if that was the way they were to go, would have to have a valid planning reason for doing so.
Through Mr Mayor, I can't really comment further. Our assessment is it's approvable and we've suggested appropriate conditions.
Councillor Andrew. Entering into the debate now, the mover, Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And first off, thank you to those community members, Mr Mayor, who engaged with us. And whilst I speak for this motion, it does not mean that I dismiss your concerns. I also thank the staff for providing the expert opinions and recommendations on this item. As we embark on this digital age, it is crucial for us to balance as a council and prioritise the advancement of technology and embrace the benefits that can bring with it to the wider community. First and foremost, the implementation of a new phone tower will significantly enhance our city's connectivity. With faster and more reliable internet access to our residents and businesses, in particular in Withers, they will be able to enjoy seamless communications, improved productivity and better access to critical services. As people and businesses embrace working from home, e-learning and Pokemon hunts, there will be need to have an increase of similar infrastructure into the future. As we all know, mobile phones are seemingly interconnected with the day-to-day living of a majority of residents. But there are many other aspects to mobile phone towers. There are IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, such as smart home appliances, wearable health monitors, smart watches, my old watch used to connect to them, environmental sensors, and many others that connect to phone towers to transmit data and receive instructions. In the future, we'll have autonomous vehicles. There's telemedicine, remote healthcare, medical alert devices, online mental health apps that need to be connected. Smart city applications into the future, augmented reality and virtual reality will require more infrastructure like this. Enhanced public safety systems. More connectivity and better connectivity allows for greater community safety through mobile security cameras, household alarms, mobile security backup, the list goes on. These all require investments in infrastructure. And understand there may be concerns about the potential health and environmental impacts of 5G technology. But it is essential to emphasise that extensive research and guidelines from regulatory and governing bodies have demonstrated the safety of 5G networks. The standards set for the deployment of 5G infrastructure ensures that it complies with strict safety measures and poses no significant risk to public health. As a councillor, our decision-making process is still guided by state legislation. Planning matters are quasi-judicial, requiring us to base our decision on the planning frameworks. And whilst there will be some immediate issues to amenity in the proposal, the city has tried and made recommendations to screening and the colour of the tower itself. There are many towers and structures like this around the city. I was driving today through Kerry Park and I was looking, because I looked at the Rose Lane way, and the Rose Lane, same height as what they're proposing to build out here. And as I drive into Kerry Park, there's giant light towers. They're about 30, 40 metres high. Hay Park Sports Oval, Payne Park, there are many large structures. The old Perth antennas that many houses have. I don't know who watches streaming free-to-air TV anymore, but you drive around and they're still 10, 15 metres high. 5G being a high-frequency technology means it does not travel as far, requiring more towers to meet the same coverage as its 3G and 4G predecessors. The decision-making process of a councillor is not easy, and I know there will be a number of members of our community who will be upset with my decision. But again, I acknowledge the concerns of the community, while also acknowledging the demand from the community, and there is demand for better mobile coverage and connectivity. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. The second was Councillor Brown.
Thank you.
Just Mike, thanks. No, Councillor Andrew, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Look, this is a complex decision and involves a number of parts. I have had to think deeply about this. On the one hand, you have a towering piece of infrastructure. On the other, an essential piece of technology that will increase user connectivity and give better coverage for hundreds of users. On the physical side of the development, the overall bulk and size of the construction is equivalent to the communication tower that is between Harvey Norman and Blair Street. That is 36.5 metres. And the structure behind Rose Lane is 40 metres. The racecourse structure is 26.4 metres. On the technical side, it will be a boost for digital coverage in the immediate area. People will have differing opinions. I'm sure if I asked my own family, there would be different opinions. In making my decision tonight, I'm guided by our experts from the state government agencies, federal departments, and our own local government experts. Our staff have accessed all of the planning and technical documents from both state and federal levels. From a local government perspective, we can only control what we can control. And if the telecommunications infrastructure is compliant with State Planning Policy 5.2, then we must rely upon our staff to make the appropriate recommendation. The Planning Department has laid out all of the items for compliance within the agenda and made the recommendation to approve subject to conditions. This is the executive recommendation. I am voting to support this recommendation based on that advice. Thank you.
Speaker against, Councillor Turner?
Thank you. Sorry. Got a moonbird on, so I'm not very stable at the moment. I understand there's a need for improved mobile coverage and internet connectivity in Withers. However, the proposed 35-metre facility will negatively affect some residents, and I believe it's very unfair for those few that it will affect. Additionally, this facility will potentially have multiple carriers co-locating in the future, increasing the number of attendants, and 35-metre monopole. This monopole will be visible from a distance of up to 200 metres, if not more. We're in a difficult position as councillors because this actually complies with all the planning issues that they need to tick. So if this doesn't go through, it can then go to SAT, and then the chances are it'll probably be passed through there. So it's a difficult position, but I mean, on Beach Road there was a proposal for a daycare centre, and because they didn't, we voted against that, and that was a 2-metre storey building because it didn't fit with the area. This is a 35-metre monopole. I mean, sorry, but it looks like an alien spaceship is going to land and plant itself in Withers. And if I walked out my front door and that was going to be across the road from me, I'd be doing a little bit more than writing an objection letter to the council. I'd be chaining myself to something, I can tell you that right now. I don't want to see it from 50 metres or 100 metres away either. I keep seeing the word no evidence of health issues, no evidence of, just because there's no evidence doesn't mean that there isn't something wrong. In one section, they say, they sort of contradict themselves a little bit. The proponent's response to one question states, 5G exposure to children would be a pressing concern. Yet in another response addressing a possible health risk to residents, the proponent says, there is no evidence to telecommunication technology such as 5G causes adverse health impacts to humans. Well, it's a pressing concern if those residents who live close by have children or babies. Why is it a pressing concern for a school but not for residential families? And I'll guarantee I would not buy a house if that was across the road from me or within 200 metres of my home. And to say there's no evidence that it impacts the price of the property of your house, I'm sorry, but come on. You're not going to be able to sell your house as easy as what you want. And this is the problem with planning issues and big companies. They come in and you've got to take emotion into these things. You've got to take people's feelings. It's I don't know, it's just not on. I would be very distressed if this was near my home. And because it's Withers, oh, let's just throw it in Withers, they'll be right. You're going to be able to see these things from miles away. No. No, sorry. It can be planned as tick every box, cross every T, dot every I. Still doesn't mean that it's going to work, or there's too many contradictions for my liking. And Telstra, maybe they need to improve the technology so it does actually travel further. So then it's not, we're going to talk about petrol stations. How about, Telstra poles left, right and centre throughout a suburb? They're popping up everywhere now. I can tell you my son's a gamer and I live about 600 metres away from the Rose Lane, 35, 36 metre monstrosity, and I guarantee his computer's always lagging. So even having it within 500-600 metre distance, it's not doing my household any favours, that's for sure. So I'm sorry, vote against it, please, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Is there a speaker for? I'll take the opportunity to speak for because I know that you want to speak against it, Councillor Steele. I won't add much more. I think what's been covered has been covered, but I'll use that opportunity to give you the opportunity to speak. That's all. Thank you, Councillor Steele.
Thank you. Yes, I'll be voting against it because I don't feel we have enough evidence that we actually are needing this, based on my questions that I asked earlier. And also I now have concerns that what Councillor Andrews said about us needing more of these towers needed. I'm really looking forward to the day that Marston Hill needs theirs, because I don't think we will be all sitting here agreeing to have one in Marsden Hill. And I can put money on that, even though I'm not a bettor. So I'm looking forward to that day. And I also have big things. We're trying to make Withers a livable area and change its reputation as being, the area you don't want to live in. By having these towers there, I don't think it needs to be done. My question wasn't asked, and I understand this is a planning thing, but we have to base our decision based on the evidence that we have, and I cannot see in any of this report that it's needed in that area, why it can't be out further outside of Bunbury or outside of an area that does have no, none of our residents that are impacted. These are the people that we are here representing. We're not here representing Telstra, because I can tell you them on their billions of dollars every year, they should be upgrading. And another thing that Councillor Andrews kept on talking about was about our emergencies. What we need to worry about is actually Western Power updating their system, because if we don't have electricity, these things don't actually work. So that's where our power outages come from. So I will be actually voting against this based on that I do not have enough concrete evidence here for me to say that we actually need this tower at that location. And until I have that in front of me, I will not be voting for this, because I'm standing with our ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Steele. Is there a speaker for? Councillor Andrew. To close. Nothing further from you, Councillor Andrew. Councillors, I'll put this recommendation as it stands. Those in favour, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4. And those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 against. That executive recommendation is lost. We will need a reason on that, so I might just quickly the director doesn't have much for me. I'm going to maybe refer to the speakers against. The executive recommendation wasn't approved. The reasons were refusal based on that debate were around amenity. I'm just looking at the director if he can provide anything further, but he doesn't have much for me. Amenity and... you got anything for me, Director? CEO.
Thank you. I think the director's already indicated there is some difficulty here, but we do obviously need a reason
I'll just see
around perhaps the amenity issues would be where you might want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within neighbourhood centre.
Okay, I think if we can have the reasons the executive recommendation wasn't approved was based on the amenity concerns of the residents, we'll ask the director to get some wording around that, and we'll pick up the debates and items in the debate to form part of the minutes. Just the reason being, and for those who have attended before, if there's a executive recommendation that isn't approved, there just needs to be reasons to why that is reflected in the minutes, which will be done. We'll pick up that as the main key reasons, and then the minute taker can have the good job of going back and watching that and picking up those reasons. Councillor Andrew?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just quickly, the last item that Council rejected and has gone to SAT, there was questions regarding that we should have had an alternate motion put. There was some questions about that. I'm not sure if you can get...
Sure, I'll just ask the manager, through the CEO, the manager of governance, do we need there has been obviously a suggestion to not support this, do we need to have a recommendation there, an alternative recommendation? Through you, Mr CEO.
So I'll hand it to the manager of governance. My understanding is that you don't need an alternative motion. This has been lost, and there is reasons, but manager of governance may have some further comment.
Yeah, thanks, CEO, and through you, Mr Mayor. Exactly spot on, CEO. Although having said that, I can't be privy to...
No, and we don't need to, manager, and Drew.
Agree with Councillor Andrew. I think that if a recommendation from staff has been done, we usually put a recommendation forward saying that we don't approve it.
Yeah, so Councillor Steele, it doesn't need another recommendation, there just needs to be a reason. The reason's been given, that's sort of half written below, and those reasons will be picked up. There was no pro forma recommendation sort of suggested during the debate, and that's the only time to be going back to it. We can't then sit here and bring up a new recommendation out of thin air. Future conversations and future people speaking against recommendations, that will be the advice, is to come up with some kind of pro forma. We're dealing with this item now, it's been dealt with, it has been lost. For those who were there speaking against it, that item was lost. So thank you you're more than welcome to stay, obviously, but for those who have been here and dealt with that item, you can stay, or you may go home now if you would like to. Are you asking to bring Councillor Steck back online? Well, I'll ask if we can get Councillor Steck back online. Just bear with us for one moment, members of the public. We'll just bring Councillor Steck back online.
I'm present, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Steck. Councillors, we're now dealing with item 10.4.2, and we do have a deputation from Mr. Ray Parker. Ray? Still with us, Ray? Oh, there you are, Ray.
Come forward.
Sorry, man. We might just, Dave, are you able to just help with that microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about this. Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Thank you
Ray.
for having me here.
Pleasure.
Yes, we've just got some concerns about this lot 505 in what we call Dolphin Cove. It's a very complex thing, and what has happened that the Lands Department through the government agency have set up a land lot numbers over Coombana Bay entirely apart from the shipping channel. And one of the survey lines runs from the Dolphin Discovery Centre out to the breakwater, and then it comes back in on an angle straight down the causeway right to the end of lot 5, and then it runs across lot 5, lot 6, and then it runs back out the Bonnefoy Boulevard wall, and it goes out 118 metres out into open water, and then it comes back in 116 metres into that orange facilities compound. And the plan is to fill in Dolphin Cove with backfill to create another land area for development. Well, we asked the question, why are we doing this? And there's a lot of deceit in the general operations of what's been going on for 16 years, because I've been dealing with Landcorp right from the word go on this. And I produced a document of about 35 pages with reasons why it shouldn't be filled in. We, in Bunbury, we advertise our three waters system. We're very proud of that, and it's very unique that we have got in a town 3 different locations of water. But this business about filling in Dolphin Cove is just unbelievably stupid. And I can say that with ease. It's very difficult to explain to people, but because there's been no information given to the general public on this, and people don't want to talk to me about the Government Gazette because that doesn't get to the general people. You know, there's 30,000 people in Bunbury, and over a 16-year period, I've asked many, many people of what do they know about filling in Dolphin Cove, and I have not had one person in 16 years say to me, yes, I know about that. We have asked them to put up signboards to tell people what they're going to do at the entrance to Dolphin Cove. Nobody's ever bothered to go ahead with that, so people don't know. I put it this way, it's that piece of water is not ours. It doesn't belong to Bunbury City Council, it doesn't belong to government agencies, and it doesn't belong to the ratepayers. It belongs to the dolphins. For 16 years I've observed dolphins in there feeding. It's a habitat for the dolphins of Bunbury, who frequently travel around up and down through the cut, into the estuary, into the Coombana Bay and along Dolphin Cove, through Dolphin Cove and down the Bonnefoy Boulevard seawall, and then go into the inlet. It's a circular area. In that, the way it's set up, it's got right at where the compound is, and you know, some people might not know what I'm talking about, but where the compound is where the old jetty went out. And underneath that, under that, there is still some old piles right at the end. And when you go out through, if you look in the water, there's rocks there. On a low tide, those rocks are barely out of under the surface of the water, because you can watch the dolphins. They'll come along on Bonnefoy Boulevard seawall, or come the other way through Dolphin Cove, and you'll see them, they'll come across there and they rise up as they go over the thing. And that acts as a trap. That's the other end of the trap. Dolphin Cove is a sort of half circle, and they generally feed. And I've seen them in there teaching their young how to catch fish in there. So the question is why are we wanting to fill in Dolphin Cove? Throughout Bunbury, and if you look at land along the Ocean Drive, like if you take in the old Punch Bowl Caravan Park, and all the land from like Hungry Hollow to the Surf Club is still vacant. So you have to ask a question, why, ask it to the council, ask it to anyone, to the government agency, why is this land still vacant? And then why are you trying to fill in a waterway? Dolphin Cove also promotes probably one of the safest entry beaches in Bunbury. It has a gentle slope into it, it's clear of rock, it's clear of weed, and it's always calm. And it's used, Dolphin Cove itself is used by a lot of people as a picnic area, a swimming area, a fishing, crabbing area, a general meeting area. When they had the fireworks out at the Crane last year, that Dolphin Cove was packed. You couldn't get another car or person in there because they were all looking northwards. So the question is, what we see is in Town Plan Scheme 8, that's when they started advertising this lot 505 with a restricted use 1 usage on it, and then they listed everything that you could put in there, hotels, blah, blah, blah. There's too many listed, but right now that's being changed. All of those restricted uses are going to go. They're still in existence now, that they will go, and they've got a DA2 that's going to take its place. Now, this DA2 is just a simple document that somebody's got to make an application for the usage of the land. So we get back to the point: who's going to subdivide this land? Landcorp did the Marston Waterfront subdivision, so I suppose Development WA may be attached to it, but it hasn't got to that stage yet. The people are in the dark in Bunbury, and I'll guarantee if you run a referendum, you'll probably get about a 95% no vote to fill that place in. I'd bet money on it. So where do we go from that? The next step from the council is they're going to go to this DA2, and then it'll proceed from there onwards. So how do we get this message through to the general public of Bunbury? Somebody needs to tell me, because right now nobody knows in it. You can use a little bit of a story and say, and we did try that. You can stand down on Bon Marché Cornet and ask people that walk past, what do they know about filling in Dolphin Cove? And you'll just get, I don't know. That's where it lies. So we show great concern. There is 2 bits of land there. The Dolphin Cove car park is a piece of land, but the other part is part of Coombana Bay. But there's not one word in any government agency or the City of Bunbury's documentation that mentions that piece is actually water, the outer part. So the public are blinded by what's going on. To give you a bit of an instance, and, I don't like saying this, but I was talking to the Land Department one day, many, many years ago, and I asked them about Lot 16, and Lot 16 was the PAW behind Lot 5 and behind Lot 6. And I was talking to the lady there and making some inquiries, and I asked her about Lot 16. She said, "What Lot 16? And I said, "Lot 16, the PAW." She said, "There is no Lot 16 here, it's Lot 505. I said, "How could it be 505? And I said, "Can you send me a copy of the title and and the map of it. So she sent it to me and I went, hello, the council have just lost their PAW and they don't know anything about it. And I wrote a letter to the council, Bunbury City Council. I said, do you know you've lost your lot 16 PAW? And
Mr.
I
Parker, you
got,
are coming to the end of your 10 minutes. I'll just allow you a bit of time to summarise there, but you are coming to the end of your 10 minutes.
okay, I've got a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll just summarise. Anyhow, so what the story is that the council wrote back to me and they said, we're going to write to the Lands Department, tell them we want our PAW back. And then 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the Lands Department saying that we're going to re-survey and give that PAW back. You know, so that's the sort of thing. I'm just giving that as a demonstration that, you know, people just don't know what's going on, what they're doing. And I'd say broadly it's the government agencies. So there is great concern. I produced a document of about 35 pages on this some 16 years ago, and I gave it to Landcorp. I had 3 meetings with the general manager and the regional managers and I gave them this document. I had lots of meetings with them. I gave them this document, and then the third time I went back, I said, did you get that document? And the guys, they both looked at me and they said, Jesus, you did a good job on that, but they wouldn't say anything else. And people ought to read, generally I've sent copies of that to all the councillors, but if anyone wants one, they should go to the council and get one. And that's just where we're coming from. We show, as the public, we show great concerns that you're going to fill in part of Coombana Bay, Dolphin Cove.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, we have this recommendation here for us of the local plan scheme. Are you happy to move? I might just get it on the table first, Councillor Brown, if I could. Is there a mover for this first, for this executive recommendation? Councillor Andrew, is there a seconder? Councillor Turner? And Councillor Brown, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Please stand. Thanks, Councillor Brown.
Sorry. Just a follow-up question from last week. On page 595 of the agenda, or page 22 of the submissions, Council have acknowledged the City would have no objection to an advice note being added to the bottom of the requirements column 3 in italics that refers to part of lot 505 Jetty Road extending beyond the point of the current shoreline, were this supported by the West Australian Planning Commission as a modification to the advertised draft scheme amendment. I would like to see that this is incorporated into the amendment. Is that possible?
Through the CEO.
I'll ask the Director of Sustainable Communities to answer that, Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the council would like to do that, I'd suggest that we would probably modify part 1 of the recommendation and perhaps add another, a letter after G, to include that the City includes an advice note in relation to lot 505 in accordance with the agenda item. And we'll add that when we send it to the Department of Planning.
Just to put the Director on the spot, is that something the Director of Planning supports? Director of Sustainable Communities?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's fine. There's no
just
issues.
the reason I asked the Director is just that we can, if the mover and seconder are happy with that amendment, we don't have to worry about an alternative if it's not against the Directors.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. No problem from staff. I guess the only caveat is it's up to the Department of Planning, and it's unusual that they would include an advice note in the scheme of that nature, so I can't give any guarantee that they will accept it, but from staff it's fine for us to propose it.
Thank you, Director. Mover and seconder, are you happy for that to be added? Councillor Brown, do you have a follow question?
Yes, just a note there, it's 505, not 515. Thank you.
And happy with that modification, and mover and seconder are happy with that. Thank you, and the staff were happy. Okay, councillors, so considering the mover and seconder were happy with that, this now forms part of that recommendation as provided by the staff. Was there any further questions? Was there likely to be any debate on this, councillors?
Yes.
There is, okay. I'll bear with me then, Councillor Steck. The mover was Councillor Andrew. Anything to add at this stage? Councillor Turner, anything to add from yourself? Reserve the right. Thank you. Councillor Steck, are you speaking against? So I'll ask for speakers against. Councillor Steck, are you speaking against?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, I am. Look, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor. However, this document leaves me bewildered because I want to thank Mr. Barber because a lot of the content is very good, but a lot of it doesn't go far enough. And he's just provided a response that said he can't guarantee that the Planning Commission will actually discuss GA2 on lot 505, and it's very rare that they do put a notice on it, so the amendment will just fly. So that's number one. So whatever that notice is, it's just going to be lost, and that will just honestly be lost. So I'll refer to page 532 of the recommendations, which states in Part B, Element A, it says, the amendment does not result in any significant impact on land in the scheme area that is not subject to the amendment. So that's actually counterproductive because if you go with Mr. Parker's synopsis, that lot 505 is impacted, and so is, if I go back to page, several pages in here that I could, go against. But if you look at page 523 of PU design, the end of the day is that means it's a permitted use. They're going to a D use, which is discretionary of whether the council admits it, wants to accept the discretion or not. But then some people have right of way, some people don't. It just adds extra convolutity into the scheme text. It's additional restrictions. It creates for time delays. Developers like things quite plain and simple. These are new people that can come here and have a look at what they can and can't do. But when things become convoluted, developers walk away. And I've been saying this for years. So I just have to ask councillors, be careful what you are endorsing, because it'll be a long time before we unpick this. And I asked questions previously in the previous council meetings about when are we going to go to public comment and when are we going to go to the next scheme text. We don't have to go to scheme 9. We can revise this and fix it. It is quite convoluted. We should never have adopted it in the beginning. And quite frankly, if we adopt this evening, it's going to be a long time again before we unpick it. And you're just not going to open the gates to the city to create a new city and create new space and opportunity. All you're going to do is the same old, same old. And Bunbury needs to really rip the Band-Aid off and give it a red-hot crack. So I'm sorry, I can't endorse this. And if I really would ask everyone, lay it on the table for the new director to have a look at, and let's go to the public and see what the public has to say. But I am 100% behind Mr. Parker. That lot 505, kiss it goodbye, it will be filled in if you endorse this evening. Please don't vote for it. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Councillor Steck.
Well, there's too much in here. There's too much in here that's going to make the city.
Councillor Steck, you've closed your debate, Councillor Steck. That's fine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Councillor Jessup, do you have a question?
If Councillor Steck, Mr Mayor, is suggesting laying on the table, I'd be happy to second that.
Well, Councillor Jessup, she hasn't moved a procedural motion. I'm suggesting she's made a pro formal that if this recommendation is lost, that'll be the item we'll go back to. I was just about to make comment on that based on the previous debate, that I was suggesting that Councillor Steck has provided an alternative recommendation if this one is lost. Anyone is entitled to move a procedural motion to defer, but I haven't heard that as yet. Thank you. Any speaker for? If that's the case, go back to Councillor Andrew. Councillors, I'll put the executive recommendation. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? Councillor Steck?
Yes, sir.
2 against. That's carried. Thank you. (10.4.3), we have a deputation here. That has been updated now with impartial interest from Councillor Quain and Mr Sam Futu. Thank you, Sam. Now, Sam, as you're coming up, and just for the elected members, this item is not confidential, but some of the attachments are confidential. One's provided by your organisation, Sam, so we'll refrain from discussing those. If elected members do want to discuss those and have any questions, we'll have to go behind closed doors. So I'll just make that clear now.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the land. Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors, for giving me the opportunity, and to the Executive Council. I'd also like to thank my current board and past board members and supporters of basketball, Bunbury Basketball here today, and thank you, Sonia, for representing Don Punch's office. I've been president of the BBA for 5 years now, and I did address council in April of this year to give an update and a summation of our position in regard to the new facility. And since then, you would have seen the quite hefty 100-page plus document. I'm here to give you some context on how we got to that point, and to give you an idea of the work that me and our board have been putting into to get to that point. Our association has been established since 1956. And this is easily the most important project that we have undertaken. To this point, we were able to engage 3 major stakeholders that have helped us put this report together. Basketball WA, where we have a representative here today on their behalf, Ascentive Consulting, and the City of Bunbury. Basketball WA in particular helped us with the financial modelling that you would see within the document. They were a huge help in leveraging and understanding past projects that they have been a part of across regional and metro WA, working on facilities similar to the project that we have proposed. We're also able to lean on the building and operational experiences that BWA have undertaken. And they have been along this journey with us since day one. And for over 10 years now, they've understood the lack of facilities for Bunbury and the Greater South West. Ascentive Consulting, where we needed expertise in reporting of data, information from the region, operational forecasting, financial modelling, and the real granular detail, Ascentive were extremely valuable. We were able to use Ascentive from a recommendation from Kalgoorlie Basketball Association, who are currently undertaking a very similar project for expansion of their facilities. And they were very helpful in that process, and we found them just as helpful with what we were undertaking. And then, of course, the City of Bunbury. I'm not sure how many of the council have children, but there is an age where they question everything. Simple questions like, why is the grass green? And you answer with, well, it's chlorophyll, and it's the combination of red and blue light that makes it turn green. And then your child says, why? And then you say, well, it's science and, you know, all that sort of, and then your child says, why? And then you say, well, you just run out of answers. Well, working with David Russell was very much like that. Sam explained to me the manpower structure. Well, we want to use a blended model of full-time and casual staff based on other modelling. Yes, but why? Well, we looked at that in detail, and yes, but why? But in all seriousness, we couldn't have got to this point without the help of Dave Russell. And because of Dave and the support of the city, we have an extremely strong and more robust report and recommendation for the planning and the strategy moving forward for this project, including meeting the new CEO, Mr Ferris, and giving us some guidance around what the governance should look like. And a big part of that will be keeping the city involved every step of the way, together with other key stakeholders and people from other industries that will help us in the build and operation. In life, there are times where society just needs to accept the fact that you have to wait for things. You try and buy a new Land Cruiser right now, it's a 2-year wait. You want to build a house, probably even longer wait. You're on a waiting list. Try and get into Nobu at Crown, on a waiting list. What the BBA has been faced with and has challenged to face with over the years is having to create a waiting list for our children. To play a sport in a safe, enjoyable environment that'll have a positive impact on not only their mental health, but their physical health. We don't want to accept any more waiting lists with the Bunbury Basketball Association. Our competition already uses the 3 courts at the Southwest Sports Centre 7 days a week. We're now using the PCYC court, which is 1 court, a couple of times a night, and we've even stretched out to Eton to use all 3 of their courts just to fulfil our competition. And it's still not enough. Our ability to grow is being held back by the lack of facilities. The BBA is committed, resourced, and ready to take this project from concept to sustainable reality. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. We have a recommendation in front of us. Yep. Councillor Quain, you moving? Thank you. And the seconder, plenty jumping up over there. Councillor Andrew, sure. Councillor Quain.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak in support of this executive recommendation. Firstly, thank you to the staff on their expert opinion. It's extremely appreciated. Thank you to all involved in the preparation of the reports and information to support this recommendation to progress the proposed stadium. Thank you to the State Government and their 2021 election commitment through our State Member Honourable Don Punch MLA for his $8 million commitment. Council have been on a journey with briefings and decisions. This recommendation is another step in progressing the project. I believe this recommendation will set the right governance structure and process to get the most effective outcome for our community. This governance model is designed to achieve the best reward for the project and also our community. You will note the officer's comments speak to the list of items the Department of Sport sought information on to support the funding and progress of this project. I believe Council has the right information to make a very informed decision. With all the information on hand, I strongly encourage Council to vote in support of the executive recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quain. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess just very quickly, once again, thank you to David Russell and the team. I know that the 2 years I've been here, this has been bubbling away in the background. There's certainly been, I guess, a lot of work that's gone into this, and including yourself and the new CEO and the past CEO. One of the things I'm really excited about, Mr Mayor, I guess, is the new model where it's user own and operate. Even though there are a lot of sporting clubs, a lot of organisations in the city, such as football clubs who do own their own infrastructure, the Speedway, etc. It's really exciting to see this opportunity because from a council point of view, it de-risks the city. It supports local organisations. It makes it a little bit cheaper to run and it puts less pressure and less strain on the city, which means we've got more capacity to do other wonderful things. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? If that's the case, happy to put the executive recommendation. Those in favour, please indicate. Councillor Steck?
Yes.
In favour, thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you to the BBA. Thank you to the staff. That's approved. Thank you. Those from the Basketball Association, we do have one more item to go, but I do know a couple of you come down from Perth, so feel free, if you need to head back now, feel free. Otherwise, more than welcome to join us. We'll just give a moment for those who may have to go. Before we deal with the motion and notice, that's the last item, we just have a couple of applications of leave there in front of us. Councillors, we have Councillor Quain was in there. Councillor Quain, Councillor Steele, happy to approve. Seconder, Councillor Andrew. For those, I'll put that. Those in favour of Councillor Quain's leave, please indicate. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Steck, happy to, thank you. Councillor Steck, your leave, moved by Councillor Steele, seconded by Councillor Andrew. I'll put that recommendation. Those in favour, please indicate. And Councillor Steck?
Yes.
That's good. You've approved yourself. Enjoy. Councillors.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Very good, councillors. We come to item 12.1, and there are some deputations on this item as well. I'll bring them up in the order that I have here. So we're starting with Jane Anderson. Thank you, Jane. Dr. Jane Anderson, or should I? Sorry. Yeah, sorry, sorry, Jane. So same as before, 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for this privilege of address. So what I want to say this evening ought to be understood in the biggest story of the need to recover the role of the local community. Empowered communities give greater visibility to local issues and shape actions on the ground. Within this story is the role of government. In Australia, state government is accorded the responsibility for delivering community services, while local government is tasked with ensuring services are adapted to the needs of the community. This arrangement has significance for delivering homelessness services. State government has a role, and so does local government. However, currently, that arrangement is out of balance. The state government monopolises the delivery of homelessness services, while local government is given little or no say about how these services are to be adjusted. Evidence of this can be found in the frustrated bid to establish an emergency shelter in Bunbury. 3 sets of local stakeholders have been continually frustrated by the state government not responding to the community's need for such a shelter. The first group, people in need of an emergency shelter. In 2017, these people were mostly homeless single men and women and children fleeing from domestic violence. In 2018, it was individuals who had a serious methamphetamine addiction. In 2020, it was homeless people needing a safe place during the pandemic. In 2023, it is families living in tents and cars, older single women, people with AOD and mental health difficulties, Joe blogs in cars, and people discharged from prison. Today, vulnerable people to homelessness still don't have the benefit of an emergency shelter where they can have a safe place to sleep at night, where they can access basic facilities to cook and shower, and where they can shelter from extreme weather events, like the oppressive heat we endured a few weeks ago. The second group, concerned community members. In 2017, the Bunbury Primary Homeless Group, led by Mike Fenton, who is present here tonight, worked hard to understand and address homelessness. The group came up against several bureaucratic barriers and its work was suspended. In 2018, Doors Wide Open was confronted with people seeking crisis and transitional housing. We had a plan, but it was not supported by state government. In 2020, the South West Development Commission engaged a consultant who is present here tonight to consider the need for a hub where people experiencing homelessness can be referred to by crisis services and by the police. A lead agency was identified. The decommissioned fire station on Forest Avenue was recognised as a potential site, and a budget was produced. The plan was not supported by state government. In 2023, I identified the scarcity of housing for Aboriginal people discharged from prisons. I wrote to the Minister for Housing and Homelessness and I received a bureaucratic reply. We, concerned community members, have been constantly rebuffed by state government. So much time, talent and treasure have gone into trying to alleviate the immediate needs of homeless people, but that generosity has been squandered. The third group, local council. The council has repeatedly attempted to address the need for emergency shelter with very few resources. We know most ranges are accommodating, but homeless people who set up camp must eventually be moved on. Then there are the scandals surrounding the Graham Bricknell shell, which frequently serves as a makeshift homeless shelter. Let's recall the killing of Zach, a homeless man, the fallout resulting from the Donga, the Wiggles solution. Shelter WA slammed the council's actions as, quote, hideously cruel, unquote. Note, a community which cannot act on an issue will react, and that's what they did. Meanwhile, the council still doesn't have the means to address homelessness needs and avoid perennial scandals. So what is the state government doing? The state government rightly aims to end homelessness. It has invested heavily in the Housing First housing initiative, which concentrates efforts on addressing the needs of people who are chronically homeless. But COVID and the rising costs of living have stymied the strategy. Currently, 109 individuals are being largely case managed into nothing. It is unlikely that even this group will have their housing needs met anytime soon. In this regard, let's get a fix on reality. There is an acute shortage of affordable rentals. There is a shortage of builders, a shortage of building supplies. The climate crisis is getting worse. Nothing is going to happen soon. As a stopgap measure, an emergency shelter has an important role to play. The fire station. Since 2018, efforts have been made to have the fire station turned into an emergency shelter, but they have been thwarted by claims of PFAS contamination. Yet where is the evidence that the building is contaminated to the extent that it prevents habitation? Correspondence from the state government and highly informed sources imply it is not. Meanwhile, for the last 6 years, our community could have used that vacant place to provide safety, basic amenities and protection from the weather for the most vulnerable in our community. Zach's life could have been spared. So this is the reason why I'm supporting Councillor Gasseb's motion to establish a homelessness and housing solutions working group. This motion represents an opportunity to recover the role of local government to play its part in ensuring that homelessness services are adapted to the needs of our community. This motion has the potential to open a local avenue through which community members could contribute meaningfully to engaging with the issue of homelessness. Indeed, such a working group could help both local government and state government to make place-based decisions. It could even go so far as deepening our democracy. So, councillors, have courage. Vote yes for the motion. Vote yes to increasing our community's capacity for engaging with the issue of homelessness in Bunbury in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Yep, so happy to do it. Jonathan Bowles. Jonathan. John? Know your last name now, mate.
That's all right. You're welcome to enjoy knowing my last name, Mayor and fellow councillors. So I've just got a couple of little notes. One thing though, I really would hope that when you guys vote tonight regarding this, you'll do it from your heart as well as your head. You'll weigh up all the merits as being more favourable as to the fact that whilst I've been in my situation, and when I got into my situation, I had no avenue of where to find services. I knew nowhere to go. It was through other people that I met on the street that they showed me the in-town centre. Cool, at least that was a good stepping stone start. From there, I got to meet different agencies and the Salvation Army. I had no idea where the Salvation Army was. I know they existed in this city, but I literally had no clue. Found out through meeting them that they're a long way out of town, which is not very helpful for someone like myself who has finally found out, no, you don't qualify for receiving financial support from Centrelink. Okay, cool. How else can I go about this? Working on that one. Thanks to the caseworker that I have from the Salvation Army, I've made application for a job because the Salvation Army supported me to be able to get my licence transferred from a New Zealand one to a WA one. Now I'm just trying to work in with a potential company that could hopefully help me get the driving endorsements for operating heavy machinery transferred over as well. Opens more doors and avenues. Whilst I've been in this situation, I've been helping other people the same as myself with little means of any way of doing it. Mainly I do it with just supporting people, treating them as people, which I know all of you councillors do. So I know that whatever you decide will be based on that human aspect. But I did have a thought. Is it possible that there's a way of finding out those who are on the street at this stage or are in a not suitable living situation? Can we see if there's a way of getting local businesses to go, hey, we'd like you to come along and do a traineeship with us? That way you become skilled, another productive member back in society again, and from that it could spin off to a scholarship potential for a local high school or high schools in general. It's a possibility, it's a thought, it's a way of creating a new community discussion that gets the potential of this current situation of not having enough skilled people out there to actually work, being able to work, being able to fill a gap that is currently missing. The other thing I've noticed whilst being in this situation, we don't have the availability of a street doctor, someone we can go to more readily and easily when we have issues regarding our health. The only way to get to one is wherever there's a doctor that's willing to bulk bill if you're on Medicare. But most of them are a very long way out of town and not the most easy to get to places. So I'm hoping there's a way with the council that through this working group, we'd be able to actually facilitate talking to the right people, getting those people to go, bingo, that's a good step. That's a way we can help our community. That's a way we can potentially look after the vulnerable people as well as help the community go, no, they're not bad people. Because that's one of the biggest stigmas that's still out there at this moment. You're homeless, you're on drugs, you're on alcohol, you're an offensive person or an offender. Sorry, that doesn't really exist with all of them. Once they've had a few drinks, unfortunately, we all know that we can potentially have friends that are just not so nice. I know, I can sometimes be like that myself when I do happen to have a drink with my friends and we get into a not so wonderful conversation. But, you know, it's when they're influenced in a negative way by stigmas around, unfortunately, people behave in a not so polite manner. So, you know, maybe, just maybe, through creating this working group, which I hope you guys will fully get behind, we can get all the agencies together and be able to sit down and go, what do you guys think we need to look at? What do you think of this idea? Is there a potential that through community support and fundraisers, we can actually look at the concept of being able to do a scholarship program, a training program? I mean, over this weekend just gone, I went and helped Doors Wide Open, who happened to be here tonight, and I helped them fundraise for their organisation through doing a sausage sizzle. And I dressed up as a hot dog. I had the best time ever. But it was fun, you know, it got the community going, hey, we didn't know about these guys, but let's go on in and buy a sausage because they've got a mascot out there that's absolutely awesome. At the same time, it helped the local business too. But it was great fun. All had a great laugh. We all had an amazing day. And it got their facility known for the abilities of what they can help with. So hopefully through possibly this all going forward, yeah, we'll get more organisations like that being able to assist and help those who are in need and who are vulnerable. Because at the moment, I have moments where I'm like, am I going to end up in one of those horrible situations or not? I know, thankfully, I'm watched over and I'm looked after, but there's always that possibility. And hopefully, we can also get the local police to be able to be an advocate for going, when you're in trouble and you're in need, you can find this place here, or just come to the council office. They will have a list there of people you can talk to. And that way then you get the help you need. So thank you for you guys' time tonight, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Ingrid Liaro.
I should say I'm happy to be here, but actually not, because I would like everyone to have somewhere to live and this not being necessary. And you can see how important I think it is to be here because I haven't brought my knitting. Well, I even wrote down what I wanted to say, so I will say it that way. I'm a tired woman, tired of all the talking, tired of all the willful ignorance, tired to see a bad situation becoming worse, especially for women. There are many homeless women, more of them every day. I'm no longer one of them, but I was couch surfing for years, like many others. I belong to the fastest growing group within the homeless, women over 55. There is nothing for this group available in Bunbury. The next group are women fleeing domestic violence, often with children. There is a refuge for them, if they are lucky. More than 300 could not be accommodated by the refuge last financial year. If I remember it right, it was about 350. Think about it. Many women go back to the abusive situation just to have a roof over theirs and their children's heads. And that is the most dangerous situation ever if you are fleeing domestic violence. Normally, it's when you want to leave that you get killed. And then you have all the women in families finding themselves homeless because they cannot pay the ever-growing rents. In my work with the soup van, I meet people I knew as renters who needed food assistance but managed to pay rent. Now they're living in a car or a tent with the entire family. Parents go to low-paying jobs in the morning, children go to school. You have to admire their courage. And this actually means that there are less homeless people in Bunbury because there is no shade in Bunbury. So they go outside of Bunbury in the neighbouring shires to have a tent in a bushland or something. We urgently need emergency shelters for men, women and families. We need more lodging, housing, apartments, even dongas, temporary and permanent. Anything is better than a piece of cardboard on the ground. The Housing First initiative is a beautiful idea, wrecked by the lack of housing. When we hear all the nice words about agencies and charities working with homeless people, we close our eyes to the enormous elephant in the room. There is nowhere to go. Being homeless destroys people, and housing is a human right. Article 25.1 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and Australia is a signatory. I've been told that 8% of social housing in the southwest needs repairs and most stand empty. Selling those houses to homeless families who are willing to do most of the repairs themselves would solve many problems. Less homeless families, first of all, but even if payments would have to be roughly equal to rents in social housing, Homes West would receive money to build and repair, and they would be rid of a real problem. This would allow even more people to find a home. There would have to be safeguards, like buyers have to live in their houses and not sell them until they have paid them off. But once there is a will to get this underway, the commercial details will be easy to sort out. In Europe, almost half of all lodgings are shire or state-owned. It costs to build, but it provides an income for the shires for the life of those buildings. And it saves money for the shires and the state. It is incredibly expensive to have homeless people around. A conservative estimate by academics is that every dollar invested in housing saves 3. We have so many talk fests, so many thoughts leading nowhere, so much bureaucratic nonsense. The old fire station is a prime example. It is time to have a working committee with 3 concerned groups: shires, private enterprise, and homeless people. All are needed to work together, producing plans, doable plans. To be effective, the committee and the work has to be in cooperations with surrounding, more rural shires. Even so, there are things we cannot do on our own here in Greater Bunbury, but you would be surprised with how much you can do when you decide to. And for plans that need more support, the councils can be advocates and pressure state and federal governments. I know of only one country without homelessness, Finland. They decided to build enough to give a place to live to everyone. We need to decide the same. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you. Gary Carl Garrett. Thank you, Gary.
Kaya, we're Yanka, Bordia, councillors, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, CEO. Yanka, means thank you for letting me speak actually now. I can't match what Dr. Jane said or Ingrid. They've covered everything, but I want to come from an Aboriginal perspective, from my Bibbulmun people. I'm a Wadandi person from Bunbury. Okay. I'd like to talk about 2.1 by Councillor Gassett. The other week you had a meeting at the Bunbury Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I noticed not one homeless person was invited. How can you help somebody if you don't invite some of the people who you are talking about? Now, this motion that Councillor Gassett has, I think we have the Homeless Solutions Working Group. You will need to have the homeless people involved, white and black, okay? Male and female. Homelessness, right? Homelessness can lead to domestic violence, right? Okay? And other issues. When someone's hurting, they take it out on the ones they love the most, okay? And I don't care who you are, I bet you someone's here has had an issue with violence with somebody they know or a family member. And it's mainly women and children that get hurt. Enough. We don't want our women and children to get hurt anymore. I'm not perfect. I've argued with my wife. I did something silly when I used to drink. I don't drink, I don't smoke. And if you think all the Aboriginal people aren't able to look after themselves in a way, I don't work anymore. I retired. My wife retired. We don't get Centrelink. We never will. We set ourselves up to be independent. And there are many, many people out there like us who are Aboriginal. So when you look at me, I'm not I was homeless. I've been homeless over the years. That was my choice. And now a lot of people do that because it's their choice. Sometimes some people are mentally ill and they don't know how to fix that. Okay, I want to go on to, I would like to see an overnight day shelter, night and day, used as a cool-down place for men who maybe are getting a bit angry. Because a lot of men get angry and they've got nowhere to go to sit down and talk or just relax. Okay, so we had something like that here in Bunbury, and that's not just for Aboriginal people. You can notice in the media there've been a lot of bashings and killing of women all across Australia. Okay, this has definitely got to stop. I mean, if you think men are more valuable than women, just look here at the council. There's a lot of women here tonight. You look in society, there's doctors, there's lawyers, there's women. You know, let's look after our women too. And then our children. Our children are going to be traumatised from the violence, from being homeless. I worked at the education department for quite a while. And a lot of the kids had nowhere because they didn't have a house. Or if they had a house, there's too many people in the house. This has come from an Aboriginal point of view. Okay? I was a youth worker for the education department in Bunbury. I was there for 4.5 years until politics got in the way. We found that a lot of kids would go to school hungry, dirty, because they had nowhere to wash their clothes. And they had no food. The breakfast clubs, we helped set that up here in Bunbury. Not me personally, the education department and the Aboriginal education. We've got quite a few schools to do that. If someone's got a house, and it's coming to children, and it's their place, and it's not overcrowded, they can study better. They can go to school, not tired, not hungry maybe. If they are hungry, there's still the breakfast clubs. And if they don't, this can lead to violence as well. So that's why we need shelters to get men out of the situation, because everyone looks after women. We need to do more, but we need to look after our men too who are suffering, and that's black or white. When someone gets angry, they don't stop and think, they just act. Then people get hurt. So prison release, I would like to see something like a 1 day to 2 day or night safe place for men, okay, and women. When they leave prison, sometimes they leave prison without even getting signed up for Centrelink. They come into town, they get dumped somewhere. Well, Bunbury Prison sometimes, actually I've been to prison. I've been in prison only for 3 months, was not paying a fine. That's all it was. It was my choice. My sisters have to pay for it. I decided no. I did the time, I did the problem, caused the issue. I had to take responsibility. So I went to jail. Big mistake. I was studying at Waite at the time. I got out to the prison out there, and behold, the teacher that was teaching there taught me at South Bunbury Primary School. She remembered my name. It's not a name that you'd forget once you learn how to say it properly. And I couldn't get any help through the prisons department. So when I left prison, at least I had a home to go to. My mum took me back. So I helped out. Again, I'm one of the lucky ones, but you'll find a lot of them aren't. You had young John speak here tonight, a very, very well-educated man in some ways. He spoke very well and he had some very good ideas. We need to start talking to people like him. So when you do this homelessness, again, I will say, make sure you include the homeless people, include Aboriginal people. I couldn't get to speak to the council, okay? So I decided to write a letter. And then I got someone else to write the letter better for me. And behold, after 3 meetings of being ignored, I got an invitation. Don't do the same thing to the homeless people or other Aboriginal people, because there's someone like that, others out there like me who won't take it. I can take it further if I wanted to. I don't want to. The mayor's a good man, okay? Yes, he might have made a few mistakes. So do all your councillors. We all do. We're human. We need to move forward now. How about we do the right thing? Let's look at this here and implement some of the things that Ingrid and Dr. Jane have been speaking about, and also young John. Okay? Prison release, halfway housing, male and female. That then comes back to the safe place again. When a prisoner gets out, as I just said, a lot of people don't know where to go. I've taken people over in Queensland to go from, I can't think of the name, one of the biggest prisons in Queensland, to Caboolture to sign them up for Centrelink because they didn't do it at the prison. How can you dump someone in the street or out of prison with nothing? What do you think they're going to do? A lot of them will go out and commit a crime just to get back in prison, especially around this time of the year. My wife works for Centrelink. She has worked for Centrelink for 35 years, roughly. We've travelled around a bit through Centrelink. I lived in Alice Springs for a while. I worked for Aboriginal hostels. I was a manager. Met a lot of Aboriginal people, traditional, as you would say. They come straight off the communities. There's a lot here in Western Australia. And Bunbury is growing. It's no longer a little city or a little town. It's a regional city. It's going to be as big one day as Perth. And as you know, there's a new city being built in Dardanup area called Wonju. They want 50,000 people there by 2050. Stop thinking small. Start thinking big. Think with your heart sometimes. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of trouble here. And putting songs on, sorry me and everyone, on over a place just to get people moving on is not a good idea. You know, change. The prison release halfway houses for males and female, I think it has to be done. I know you can't do it, but we need to talk about it because that leads to homelessness, domestic violence, illness, mental, that'd be physical and mental. If we don't do something about it, it's just going to get worse and worse. And then you're going to have more murders in this town on males and females, children as well, and we don't want that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And last but not least, David Bailey. David?
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm here representing the In-Town Lunch Centre. I've been the chairman of the board there for 15 years, nearly, coming up. And a lot of that time, nothing has happened. It's you know, we talk a lot, but nothing sort of ever comes out of it. It's been recent times when the pressures have been on, and I've listened to some wonderful speakers here this evening, and I'll try to reiterate or find something that hasn't been mentioned before about what goes on. But I'd like to start by saying the City of Bunbury, the council, has for a long time backed working with people who are homeless and people who live on the margins. Now, this goes back more than 30 years ago when a wonderful woman by the name of Geraldine Webster worked with the council at the time. In fact, to be honest, embarrassed the council of the time into moving to do something about people who were struggling on the streets of Bunbury. Now, that was more than 30 years ago. What's happened since then? Governments of all persuasions have forgotten about what's going on. And I say that from the point of view of they haven't kept up an eye on the homeless or on housing, the situation that we now face, which by any measure is a crisis. So just to put things in perspective, I know people have mentioned about people on the streets, but just, I think Ingrid mentioned that it isn't just, homeless is not just people who are sleeping rough. You're homeless if you don't have 4 walls and a roof, okay? So that includes the couch surfers, the people in cars, and that number is huge. So when we think of rough sleepers, we're actually only seeing the tip of an iceberg. It is huge. And it's actually going to get worse. Again, something else that was mentioned is people working who are now struggling just to put food on the table. Once upon a time, we had the working poor. We're now actually seeing the working homeless. In a country as wealthy as this, that is damning. So I'd like to just give you some figures of things we're facing. And there's been a lot of events that have moved together to put us in the situation that we're now facing. Amongst them has been the housing market. It's gone insane. At the same time, we've had massive amounts of immigration, which is great for the country. In fact, if we hadn't had that immigration, we probably would have been in a recession by now. But what's happened in the housing market is it's become a commodity and not a necessity, which is what it should have been, which is what it should always be. And just to put that in perspective, all the stocks on the stock market are worth less than $3 trillion. The current value of real estate in this country is more than $10 trillion. That shows you where we're going. And what that also shows us is that, well, you would have seen it from all the stories that are appearing in the media, we're going to have 2 Australias. We're going to have the haves and the have-nots. And that's not a country I want to live in. As I've already said, this council, many years ago, got behind the people who are on the streets, got behind the homeless. Now, it's sort of been a bit lax over the years, but I am glad to see this move that is before us. In fact, I'd like to see, as it's already been said, that we have an overarching committee that represents everybody. That is one of the most important things, because the last thing we need is another talk fest. There's been too many of them and nothing's happened. And that's why we're now where we are. And we're struggling. And people are struggling. And the pain is out there. And you can see it. I mean, I'm buoyed by and inspired by what John said, by what Gary said, and the hopes that Ingrid gave us. I mean, there is no reason why we cannot do better than we've already done. I mean, I see people every day come into the in-town centre, and I'm seeing more and more every day. And I just wish we didn't see anybody at all go in there. But, of course, we are. So I would like, if this does come about, if we can move forward though, what I would like to see happen is that we have a committee that has targets, sets goals, and attempts to achieve something. Not just talk about what we might be able to do, because at the end of the day, we've been doing that for decades, and that's why we are where we are right now. I don't want to bore you and go over things that you've already would have heard, but I'd just like to say that, you know, we're coming up for a time of year when we should all be looking for peace, looking for community. And by the way, as most of you know, community is the most important word in my vocabulary. And I think the City of Bunbury could get behind that community with this motion from Councillor Gazeb. And I'd just like to say one thing before I finish up that I want you all to think about as I go and sit down, and that is the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Scary. Councillor Gassab, this is your motion. I notice, so we'll defer to yourself first. Obviously, there's your motion there, and then there is an executive recommendation. I'll just pass to yourself. Are you looking to move your motion, Councillor Gassab?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move my motion. I can't support the executive recommendation after hearing.
That's fine. That's fine. Is there a second to Councillor Gassab's motion?
I would like to...
I will.
Second.
Sorry, Councillor Steck. Councillor Steele was standing pretty quickly. Councillor Steele,
Yes, I would like to second, but I haven't discussed this with Councillor Gassab. Would you consider that to have the Homeless and Housing Solutions Working Group to actually establish that so it doesn't fail, and we do have goals and achievements that, and so we... Because I also don't want this to be a talk fest. I don't want it just to be another working group.
Sure.
Could we not include something of what the exec recommendation that we request the CEO to prepare a report to guide us of how we want to proceed with our homeless working group? Because at the moment there's...
Sure, just grab a seat, Councillor Steele. So obviously there's the motion there. The Councillor Gassab's in the comment section in the report, it talks about the members of that group to be determined by council. So my suggestion, if this was successful, we're not going to be able to obviously do that on the fly here. So I would suggest that if this particular item was successful tonight, obviously it would need to come back to council with terms of reference, with members, and that's where the opportunity through those terms of reference of the working group would determine some of those outcomes. It would go through there. So I'm happy to accept some kind of modification to that. I'm just trying to think how that could work, which could be as simple as a part 2, but I'd have to ask the CEO about whether or not that's something he would be able to prepare for the 30th of January 2024, potentially.
Mayor, absolutely. The essence of my motion was really to take into account the forums that have happened and to then prepare a report. But in any report, it would be about future actions. And if there was council wished to create a working group, then we would need to work through how that would work practically, in terms of reference and membership, etc.
It would come through. It would have to come back to council, Councillor Steele anyway. So that's fine. I think it'll be gathered anyway. If this motion is successful, it'll come back to council. It's not going to be okay. Go off and get the working group now. We can have that conversation and maybe if you think about it during your debate. Okay, Councillor. Before we ask for it, was there any other questions on this process? Otherwise, I'll defer to Councillor Gassab. Thank you, Councillor Gassab. One question.
Mr Mayor, I know that Councillor Steck was pretty keen to provide some comment and lived experience. I'm just hoping she's going to get the opportunity to speak. Otherwise, we may want to suspend standing orders, considering it's late. I'm not sure if there's support.
Councillor Gassett, let's just work our way through it. I'm sure we'll get there if we need to. So you're the mover of the motion, Councillor Gassett, so you have the opportunity to speak at this stage, and we'll work our way through that. Thanks, Councillor Gassett.
One of my problems is I can't read the room, Mr. Mayor, so I'm not sure how much I should speak. Mr. Mayor, is there any chance you can put that slide up that I sent to them?
I did give it to the minute taker. It's up on the screen now, Councillor Gassett.
Okay. So I'll try to be as quick as possible. Mr. Mayor, councillors, I'm still trying to compose myself after what I've just heard. So in that slide, we've got photos of a refugee camp where people fled from wars. Then we've also got Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've got a couple of articles, news articles. One, obligated to act, was a councillor in 2005 in a debate about homelessness in the city of Bunbury, who's actually still on council now. He's on council now. The one on the right is Minister Millen, where she's made claims that domestic violence is really the responsibility of everybody. And I certainly agree with that. And I would extend that housing, homelessness is also the responsibility of everyone. So the photos, you can see on the top left there, that's my family when we visited this refugee camp. And my kids actually helped in that Christmas function there. The bottom photos are actually photos of homelessness in Australia. So when I see the top, it brings memories. When I see the bottom, it brings back memories back of the top. That's one of my drivers, Mr. Mayor. The psychological needs, just quickly, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the most basic or fundamental need is actually shelter and accommodation. Without that, it basically destroys every other need that's on that, pyramid for a person to properly function. It's so fundamental. Love, belonging, self-esteem, security. Family living in the bush, how secure are they? So, Mr. Mayor, I've just got a few dot points, and I'm not going to dwell too much, but so I can remember what they were here. So, Mr. Mayor, that 2005 slide, the article, basically brings back memories where it's out of Ecclesiastes. It says, what has been done will be done again, and there is nothing new under the sun. So some of us, Mr. Mayor, went to the previous election, and we've made all sorts of remarks and promises about fixing homelessness as councillors. So taking into account what I believe homelessness is everyone's responsibility, I do want to acknowledge that the state government is doing what it can. So this is not about knocking anyone. And I do acknowledge Don and even Sonia, who helps out. And I remember a few years ago when our family was in desperate need in assistance to get those refugees or extended family out of Lebanon. Don and Sonia opened their office to us. I want to acknowledge that. There's no doubt about what the state government's trying to do. They are paying a lot of attention to this. We as a council can do our bit and give unto Caesar what is Caesar. So let's do our bit and let the government do their bit. So family domestic violence, Mr. Mayor, is the biggest cause of homelessness. There was a reference to home housing. So I'm just going to go quickly through the dot points. WA Housing Alliance to End Homelessness was on last week. Mr. John Berger, one of the strategic directors, said, look, a working group would be ideal. And he pointed us to a working group in Perth, District Leadership Group, and that's established by the Department of Communities. And 3 councils belong to that, Fremantle, I think Cannington and Melville. We have a message that I got today from one of the people that couldn't attend, and he's saying same thing, local collaboration, including councils in terms of homelessness and the opportunities to create more housing. The working group, why working group, other than what's already mentioned, public-private partnerships. We can really go and encourage.
Councillor, I'm just going to jump in. That it's time, but I'm happy to move.
Is it?
We allow the extra time if somebody's happy to second that.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I'm trying to-
Councillor Quain. No, I just made, it's just part of the standing orders, Councillor Gassett. Those in favour of
Sure.
that, please indicate. That's passed. Continue, Councillor Gassett.
Yeah.
We have 5 more
All
minutes. Thanks, Councillor. 5.
Yeah, okay, 5 minutes should be plenty. Private-public partnerships can be great opportunities, and all credit to Minister Kerry when he came out recently and said on the radio, we're open to PPP, come and talk to us. So we can actually encourage developers. We're probably more in the know about who wants to invest than probably the state government. So because we're more underground, so we can really push that along, and possibly developers, investors could build and rent to the government and increase housing supply. We've mentioned NASLO's, kids missing out on school, impact on mental health and health. This one wasn't mentioned. 4 homeless people passed away in Bunbury. There's quite a few now, over 70 years old, living at Rough. We call them rough sleepers. Another cause of homelessness is a reduction in life expectancy. So I'll quickly mention the Bricknell Shell issue. It was controversy. I actually see that as a gift. It's raised awareness on homelessness worldwide, including Washington, New York, London. I reckon people reading it over there, they would say, we know exactly what you're going through, Australia. We know what you're going through in Bunbury. Thank you for raising it again. So actually, I want to not encourage, but not sort of punish the person that did it. I actually think they've done us a great favour. This is the after effects of which we are here tonight. Other things we could do: 50 dwellings. 50 new dwellings was the number of new dwellings last year in Bunbury, and that's not enough. That's less than half the average. Boston was 400, so it's something we could work on. The Town Centre, David Bailey. I just want to recognise Geraldine Wilson and June Dodds, who established that Town Centre. Also want to hope John doesn't mind, but he actually has no income at all because he's a New Zealand citizen, so he doesn't have settlement. And I just finish off by saying there's a Lebanese poet called Khalil Gibran, and he quotes this: "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars." To me, they're the people I'd like to listen to, homeless people, current homeless people. Whether it's women, children, men, whoever, black and white, as Gary says. So just the last comment, again from Gibran, and this is probably why I'm here. Safeguarding the rights of others is the most noble and beautiful end of a human being. So now, I'm not going to twist arms for people to vote on this. I'm pretty sure it'll be a conscious vote. Without putting any pressure on, it's our last item on the agenda in our last meeting of the year, and so close to Christmas, it would be a fabulous present to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Gassett. Thank you. Second, Councillor Steele. You're going to get an opportunity if you would like to, Councillor Steele. But at this stage, you can reserve your right. Sure. Is there a speaker against this? Sorry, before you do a minute taker, you just bring up the just the agenda back. Thank you. So, Councillor, dealing with Councillor Gassett's motion. Is there a speaker against Councillor Gassett's motion? Councillor Smith, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. This is going to be very difficult for me to speak on this issue tonight because many of my friends have been here in this room supporting this motion, and I'm not against the motion per se. What I'm against is another talk fest. I've seen too many of those in the past. Now, I'm speaking from someone who's married to someone who for 50 years in this town has tried to help people with no fanfare in hopelessness and every other issue that affects society. I was a member of Mike Fenton's working group in 2017. We didn't get anywhere. And can I say that my husband David fully supported Geraldine Webster in the In-Town Lunch Centre, as you know, David. He helped her bring that to fruition. So I believe I'm speaking from a position of knowing a little bit about Bunbury and a little bit what's going on in the past. So I make it clear I'm not against the motion per se, but I do think that it needs to be tightened up. I would agree to an amalgamation of what the CEO's got and Councillor Gasseb's motion. Now, I attended the meeting at the Honourable Don Punch's office on behalf of the Mayor last Friday to talk about homelessness, and I will say, and I agree with Councillor Gasseb on that the good thing to come out of this is this diabolical and complex issue has been escalated in the public consciousness. Maybe it needed to get to that stage. However, at that meeting were at least 8 providers of services in Bunbury, including Accord West, Anglicare, the Salvation Army, the Department of Communities, the Rough Sleepers Coordination Group, and of course the CEO and myself, and some council staff. And I'd just like to say at this point that the providers of services to the homeless, the rough sleepers, the domestic violence in this town, were praising the council staff for their compassion and their help in helping people who are homeless in this town by looking after their pets, by looking after their belongings, all that sort of thing. So the council rangers and the staff to be commended for what they've done off their own initiative, but also in the city's name. And I do think the state is stepping up. I was quite buoyed by what the information we were given at that meeting. And what upset me about this whole debate since it started was that it looked like Bunbury as a city was not doing anything for the homeless in this community. But they're doing lots. We need to do more, and there's nothing to stop the council advocating for homeless shelter, nothing to advocate for all the extra services. We can do all of that. I just don't think that this is the right vehicle at this point. I could see that an amalgamation of both might work. But what I don't want it to turn is into another talk fest. So I will just say that it would be appropriate to allow this information to be undertaken so that the CEO can then provide an informed report back to council, and as the Mayor has said, it has to come back to council anyway for decision on actions which may include the establishment of the homelessness working group and perhaps a regional working group. Because what we heard from the providers was that Bunbury is reasonably successful in housing people and looking after them, that they're getting queries from Collie and Brunswick and Harvey and everywhere else surrounding because Bunbury is doing a reasonable job. And that was the thing that I found slightly upsetting, that when the Mayor and I got an email from the Washington Post, which my son found amusing, I must admit, that Bunbury the impression was that we weren't doing anything, but we're doing lots, we have to do more, I concede that. So, Mr Mayor, I will complete by saying stop at this point because I found the whole thing quite emotional and upsetting as well, and I don't find it pleasant to have to go against some of my friends that are in this room. But I will say one of the problems I found was that there's a lack of information to the community on what is actually happening. And I'd be happy that if the council could work on if there are any gaps in providing services, what they are, over and above what the community and what the agencies are already providing. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor...
Mr Mayor?
Yeah, I was going to defer to you, Councillor Steck, because I assumed you wanted to speak, and I'll allow you to speak now for it. Thank you. Oh, that's you,
Thank you,
councillor
Mr.
Stick,
Mayor,
sorry.
and
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors. May I just congratulate all the key speakers. I found every single word of what they had to say was living experience and detailed experience, especially with Dr. Jane Anderson. I appreciate everything you've had to say. I will simply say this. There is so many people out there that do not have homes over their heads. They don't have capacity for over a 5 to 6 year period. Homes West is not and has not been funded by successional state governments for a very long time. There is a very limited opportunity to be able to get developments done because there is a very large shortage of builders and all sorts of the like. So let's just get real in developing space and what we can achieve. But what I will say is simply this. We can't have a 4x2 or a 3x2 all done. But what we can do, as I think one of the key speakers said, it was it was a lady who said dongers, but I don't want to use dongers. I just want to use transportable housing like we have on Kambana Bay, those beautiful little, I will call them villas. But I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor, but public consciousness is a very, very powerful tool. When you consider me and my personal story, for over 30 years, I've campaigned against DV. This happens to be the anniversary of my daughter's death because of all sorts of things relating to what everyone's had to say this evening. I've been very fortunate. I've had to get on with the job and created change for lots of other people, including myself. But what I will say is hats off to you, Councillor Gasseb, because you're going in the right direction. And also, the CEO is in the right direction too. So I do concur that between the two, we will get a good result. It won't be a talk fest. I guarantee you that. Everybody in the room is already aware the need of this city to do something. It will never be a talk fest. And the CEO, I know, has had experience in his previous roles in dealing with this very issue. He is very committed, and I'm sorry to put you in the mix, Mr. CEO, but I know from your previous roles that you've had, you will not take this lightly. So I just want to refer to our neighbourhood and to what we can do and what we can achieve. This is our fundamental key role of councillors. We are the narrative of our community. We are the standing block for prosperity. And we are the opportunistic people to provide opportunities to our community. Sure, we can have a regional working group, but quite frankly, we need to look after what we have at home, get our model right, and then ask others to join. That's a very simple solution. We've got ample opportunities in land available, and we can get some things done now. So a steering committee, and with land rationalisation, we can figure out how we can do this forward. And then we can go to government, shovel ready, and say, hey, we need help to fund this. If we don't have a key plan, governments are not going to get on board. And whilst I understand there are lots of great agencies doing great things on the ground, well, yes, we can find the gap and we can assist. That's our role. So be proud of it. And I ask you all to vote for this because I'm sure our CEO, when he comes back, is going to give the best that he's got and say, well, this is the way forward, councillors, get on board. So again, I just want to thank all the key speakers and I just want to ask councillors to get on board with this because there is no going back. If you do nothing, then you are all just complacent. Please, go with it.
Thank you, Councillor Steck. Is there a speaker against this motion? I'm happy to speak against it if it allows someone else to speak for, and it's not It's not so much against it in as such, it's more in support of the executive recommendation rather than this particular motion. And similar to the Deputy Mayor, knowing a lot of the people who've spoken in this room and spoken to them, a lot of them one-on-one, it's not about trying to get in the way of a working group, but we are talking here about talkfests. We are talking about establishing a homelessness and housing solutions working group, which in my mind has got so many variables in it that we'll be talking for days. Even the Councillor Steck who just spoke then said we need a steering committee, we need land redevelopment. These are all things which, yeah, we do need. If we end up with a working group, we are going to, this will have to come back through council with terms of reference, we'll have to go off advertising, and it'll take a lot longer. My suggestion here through the executive recommendations and through the CEO that he has is that, CEO, bring us a report back. Bring us back a report about what we currently gaps are and what are some of those achievables. I'm not saying that a working group may be the solution out of that action to come back to us in January. But what may happen in the interim is some of the things that have been raised tonight. There was things raised tonight about street doctors, immediate need for street doctors. There was things raised tonight about emergency shelters, immediate need for emergency shelters. If there's a gap, and I do thank the Deputy Mayor for filling me in. I was away last Thursday, Friday. I was overseas, so I wasn't at those meetings. I still want to fill some gaps are there. I know a lot of information was shared, and I apologise for the people who weren't able to attend those. I did suggest to go along. I wasn't aware there was a bit of a queue to get in, but I do apologise for that. But from what I understand, there was some gaps identified during that process, and I'm looking forward to the CEO gathering that information and bringing that back to a report for us about immediate actions that we can do. And if that action comes out of it, whether that's a working group, I would like to see a working group separate from homeless to housing solutions, because in my mind, although they can be linked together, it is a very, very broad topic. And again, it will end up being a talk fest. We've just discussed that. So that's why I won't be supporting Councillor Gassett's motion. I applaud him for trying to get this on the agenda. It is on the agenda, but I support the executive recommendation. And if this is defeated, I'll be putting a pro forma motion that we support the executive recommendation and really testing out our brand new CEO to bring back a report where we can have these conversations about what we have discussed tonight, what the gaps are, and what are the immediate solutions on some of those key issues that have been raised tonight. And I would suggest at some point that will be obviously a further conversation. That's my position on that, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Is there a speaker for this motion? If that's the case, I'll refer back to Councillor Gassett to close the debate.
How much time have I got, Mr. Mayor?
What's that, sorry, Councillor Gassett?
How much time have I got?
You start with 5 minutes, but I'm sure it can go to 10.
Yeah. Just excuse me, I do have a sore throat, so I can hardly speak. Mr. Mayor, to support the executive recommendation would be to support a recommendation not to go ahead with any working group, as I understand it. I don't want to go into the details, but that is the impression I have. None of the impression, that is the information I have. So I just want to put that on the table because we're all being very frank, and that's why I would not support the recommendation by the executive, because it's very likely to come back and say, let's not form a working group. And the people in the gallery and people out there, they want action. So, Mr. Mayor, something about ask Mr. Question to John, who's in the gallery. Would he have had the opportunity to come and talk to a group like a council or any other organisation if it wasn't for this motion? If it wasn't for the initiative of council?
Councillor Gassett, you can't ask questions of
No, of course not. No, you don't have to answer. So the comment about council having a heart, I know council has a heart, and some of the words that were said about us were very sad and completely false. I've seen people in our council, not just elected members, even staff, shed tears over this sort of stuff. We definitely have a heart, and I can attest to that. I'm happy to put my hand on the Bible, swear to that. But let's not put that attitude out there that we don't have a heart. So, Minister Winton, who's the Minister for Families, she said Domestic violence is everybody's responsibility, and extending that, so is homelessness. So people are saying, let's not go ahead with this working group because it may become a talk fest. So let's not invest in a working group because there's a risk it could become a talk fest. Should we look at it the other way? Let's take the risk. Let's take the investment, not financial, just time, and honour those people that have died, honour the people that are suffering out there, the families, the kids, and so we'll give it a try. It may become a talk fest, but we're going to aim for it to make sure it's not a talk fest. So I'm not here for talk fest. You know me. And if it becomes a talk fest, I'd be willing to resign. You really want some sort of commitment. Not here for a talk fest, Mr. Mayor. We can do a lot of things. We can do private-public partnerships. We can help people. We can welcome the homeless to come and have a platform to speak. So, just I'm a different sort of person. I suppose we do need an entrepreneurial spirit and take the risk that yes, there could be a talk fest, but on the other hand, this could be a great investment, or the upside's so great that it actually achieves many, many things that the community is actually desperate for. We've heard people are getting murdered. We've heard domestic violence. We've heard about kids missing out on school. And to re-quote Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs, homes, shelter is the most basic need, and it destroys everything else for a functional person not to have accommodation. So, at the end of the day, I'm a little bit disappointed. People are speaking against my motion, because I know the alternative motion will be coming back and will be saying there will be no working group. We want a working group, Mr. Mayor, and I'm hoping people are going to have a conscience on this and not apply a little bit of risk, a little bit of entrepreneurial, a little bit of love, or lots of love, and a bit of Christmas spirit. Let's give this community a Christmas gift, get this thing on the road. The terms of reference will be worked out later as it is in my motion. Structure, the role, everything else. There'll be plenty of time for our CEO and the staff and everybody else to work on the details, because it is in the motion, in my motion already. So, Mr. Mayor, reporting back on the WAAEH will not include any feedback from homeless people. So we're about providing shelter, love, and maybe some Christmas cheers for these people. Councillors, vote with your conscience, please. That's all I'm asking.
Thanks, Councillor Gassop. So, councillors, we have that the Councillor Gassop's motion, the City of Bunbury establish a homelessness and housing solutions working group, and those in favour of that motion, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Councillors, those against? And sorry, Councillor Steck, are you?
No, I'm for, Mr. Mayor.
I assume that. Thanks, Councillor Steck. That motion is passed. The City of Bunbury will establish a homelessness and housing solutions working group. Thank you, councillors. That brings us to a close. Thank you very much for the meeting. Thanks for your attendance and your patience tonight, councillors. I realise it's been a very a long meeting, but thank you all for joining us. As I mentioned at the start, have a very safe and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Mr. Steck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Enjoy your Christmas and Happy New Year.